Yo, what's good? What's poppin'? What it is, what it ain't, what it could be, what it should be, what it would be. Cam Newton, the son, Mr. Booker, they all here with another episode of Funky Friday. And I promise, I really do promise, to get good content for the masses, but ladies and gentlemen, I promise to keep it funky. You dig what I'm saying? Now today, as I always like to brief the person who takes their time to sit across from me, knee to knee. You're in for a treat. Let's just put it this way. 9-time Grammy Award winner, Guinness World Record, longest consecutive period of chart success. Gotta talk about that. He's worked with some icons, and just to name a few, Mariah Carey, Usher, Toni Braxton, Mary J., Chris Brown, the list goes on. He is in the Georgia Music Hall of Fame, Billboard's top producer of the decade. I present to some and introduce to others. Bryan-Michael Cox.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, my brother.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Good and beautiful spirits, man.
Bro, listen. Like I told you, I said, bro, you got some big boy bangers.
Man, it's all blessings, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For real, for real.
Like you literally been a part of some of the culture's anthems.
Yeah.
This is the anthem maker.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
right?
Man. Yeah, man.
So we're gonna get into a lot. We're gonna get into, so many different things. But, as one of the interesting facts about you that I've read was your mom played the flute.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that, play a role in you, and are you, instrumentally inclined being a producer that you are?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a piano player by trade. That's the first thing my first love was playing the piano. But not only my mom played the flute, my entire family was musically inclined. Like everybody played an instrument. It was almost like required, you know what I'm saying? And my mother wanted to, play in like the New York Symphony or something like that. Like that was like her dream. And, but things happen, you have a baby, you gotta figure out, what I'm saying, what you gonna do. And just thankfully, she didn't even force it on me. It was just something that came to me naturally. I wanted to do it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And she encouraged it. Sometimes when you, especially, growing up in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, it's like you tell somebody I want to be a music producer, it's like crazy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, go to law school, go to, you know what I mean? A lot of my family members did say that to me. But I always had the support of my mother. My mother always was like, okay, you want a keyboard? I'm gonna buy him a keyboard. You want a, drum machine? I'm like, my mom, she laid it down. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, really poured into, my dream and what I wanted to do early on, and allowed me to have mentors and, would say, hey, okay, these local guys that got some studio stuff or whatever. Then through that, I was able to meet people who ended up being my mentors, like a Greg Curtis, like a Preston Middleton, like a Teron Mitchell, these people who are local guys in Houston who really kind of shaped, the foundation of, where I went, you know what I'm saying?
So you mentioned Houston, but just tell me where your roots stem from. My
roots stem from the Bahamas. I was born in Miami, right? But my family on both sides are from the Bahamas, rooted in the Bahamas. So born in Miami, and my mother moved to Houston, in the late 70s, for it was like an oil rush. Houston was like a land of opportunity at the time. And we ended up there, and I spent every summer in Miami, every summer, every Christmas in Miami for a good, 15, 16 years, And then when I got older, when I became an adult, of course I would, rediscover Miami on my own, on my own terms, you know what I mean? Because I still have a lot of family down there. My father was down there, all my aunts and my uncles still down there. I have a lot of family in the Bahamas, still in Nassau, at Ackland, Cat Island, I'm rooted there.
Yeah. So as I was, we was prepping for this, this particular segment, I read where you wrote your first song at 6.
About there. Like I got,
What was it, the ABCs?
Ironically, it was about this girl I had a crush on in 3rd grade. So I was like a kindergarten or 1st grade or something like that, and there was this girl I had a crush on in 3rd grade, and I wrote a song about her. Yeah, it always, that's where it always starts, man.
So you're a lover boy.
Oh, yeah. by nature, yeah. You know what I'm saying? It always starts there, man. Like you look at the discography or the catalog. Like I mean, there's a lot of different types of. It always starts there.
Like we definitely like have to acknowledge and not just skip ahead, but working with Mariah Carey, I Stay in Love. Yeah. Don't Forget About Us. Don't forget. Like Confessions Part 2. Like these are anthems. Yeah. Like these are certain things like, yo, you've brought people back together.
Yeah.
And you've made, certain situations like this is a relationship song.
Yeah.
When you think about these songs, it's like when I listen about Usher. Just it's a nostalgic memory.
Yeah.
Do you remember the time, since you Loverboy Jones over here, what was the first girl who broke your heart?
The first girl that broke my heart that I could remember, like vividly.
Yes.
Right? This girl named Rashonda Martin, and that was in the 5th grade.
Okay, talk to me. Talk to me.
So let me tell you, it was ill, right?
Talk to me.
I remember this vividly because, like I said, I spent my summers in Miami.
Yeah.
So I was writing this girl letters, because she lived right next door to me. So I lived in this apartment complex in Houston, and she lived, her and her brother lived right next, we were our next door neighbors. So I knew her address. Yeah. So I would write her letters, and I'm in 5th grade, bro. Like, this is crazy. When you think about it.
I'm here with you,
but
bro.
I would write her letters and the whole nine. But when hindsight's 2020. Like, she probably was way too young to comprehend what I was
happening.
What was actually happening.
Or to appreciate.
Oh yeah, exactly.
The time of like, yo, this dude writing them.
Exactly. So, I remember the rejection, but I look back on it, it's like, well, I mean, who in the 5th grade is writing letters, from Miami to Houston to, the girl they like? Like, that's...
Oh, you in Houston.
No, I was in Miami.
Oh, you was in Miami,
summertime,
right into Houston.
Right into Houston.
Which she's even making it even more... Okay, how did she break your heart?
When I came back, never wrote back, but when I came back home for school in Houston, I was just like, yo, did you get my letters? And this, that, and the third. And, her and her homegirls kind of played me. They kind of like laughed at me and kind of, I'll never forget that. It was kind of like a weird thing, you know what I'm saying? And I just was like, wow, like, I poured my heart out. You laughing at me? Dang. You know what I'm saying? It was a whole thing, but I'll never forget that. That was the first time I could remember like
that feeling.
An actual feeling.
What did it trigger in you?
Really, ironically, at that point, I was already writing.
Yeah.
So all it did was just I just started writing more about it. You know what I mean? Just write.
Now, I just like where we at right here.
Yeah.
Right? Who broke your heart as an adult?
Oh, Lord. Do we have time?
Yeah.
I'm not, I mean.
But like there's a phase in every financially stable man's life, right? And just bear with me, because everybody knows this. It's like, whether we give that person the credit or the acknowledgement, like, yo, I'm really digging you, I'm really feeling you.
Yeah.
The alpha, and like, nah, babe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You good, you straight, I'm good on you,
Yeah.
But you really look forward to the Friday nothingness with this particular individual.
Yeah.
And whether it's Netflix and chill, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's cookies, whether it's this, whether it's that. And as a man, being financially stable, to want to pour yourself into something, and it's stripped.
I could definitely speak on that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I would say as an adult, I would probably say I had a heartbreak. It was like maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
Like a proper one. You know what I mean? Like.
So y'all were together?
Yeah,
or y'all
we were together.
Okay.
We were together. Of course, in my early adulthood, you go through ups and downs, but I think, like I say, like a proper one in your late 30s, when you think that you are like, you've settled.
This the one.
You figure like, yo, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, and everything is magical. Families are like this. You know, they knew the woman since she was a little girl. So families are like this. It's magical. It happens like, you know, it was something that we had kind of started.
It was a good moment in time.
It was a beautiful moment, and it was a timing thing because it was like we had kind of dealt with each other in our 20s, but then like came back around and spun the block, and when we spun the block, we spun the block. It was like.
Burn the boats.
Like Nelly and Ashanti, you know what I mean? like spun the block, you know what I mean? And I was like, yo, I'm good, you know what I mean? Like I was in a space of like, I'm gonna get married. I was there, you know what I'm saying? And we were joint, like to the point where I really started including her in like what was happening in my business, what was happening with like my money and all. I just kind of I leaned all the way in, and foreseeable things, things that we didn't foresee happened.
This Funky Friday, ladies and gentlemen,
I think
where we have to keep it funky.
Keep it funky.
I mean, what happened?
Well, what happened was it was a couple of things, right? So I have a 14-year-old son, and me and his mother are, we are super cool. We have a beautiful relationship, a beautiful friendship. Cool. And I think that the first thing was she didn't really feel comfortable with the dynamic. You know what I mean? There was
the son or the co-parent?
Me and the co-parent, me and my son's mother. I don't think she felt comfortable with the actual dynamic of the co-parenting situation. I think she might have felt like we were too comfortable, we were too cool. It wasn't really dysfunctional. You know what I mean? It wasn't a space where she could say,
harmony there.
Yeah, it wasn't a space where she could kind of take control of the situation. Yeah. If it wasn't cool, you know what I mean?
Right.
Let's say if me and my son's mother wasn't cool, then
it'd be easier for you to come in and provide value, service, and it's easy to eliminate that.
Exactly. So I think that was the first thing. In hindsight, I could take responsibility and say that I would definitely do things different now. I would have set the tone with both of them from the very beginning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I had never been in a situation like that. So for me, trying to navigate that and just saying, hey, yo, but this is just how we always been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So did you ever have that dynamic where to sit down with both parties?
We got very close one time, and it never really happened because it would be like, okay, well, when I make it happen, my girl at the time was like, didn't want to do it because she felt the way, and then when that energy happens, then his son's mother's like, well, I'm not getting ready to be, in the middle of no mess. Yeah. So it just becomes, it became, So, but that's what I'm saying. I'll take responsibility because for some of it, because now that I know what I know now, I would have, like, right now, I have a 14-year-old, whoever I'm dating, I'm setting the tone from the gate. Like, if we doing something serious and it's like, yo, hey, you finna be my lady, we got to go, when you meet my son, you got to meet his mama. We got to have
that dynamic,
the conversation.
That foundation.
So when you see us in a room together, it's not like, what is that energy? Yeah. Like, yo, this is my homie, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And y'all could be homies. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
that's grown.
Create that, you know what I mean? That was one of the biggest lessons I learned about that. We were long distance. She lived in Miami, I lived here. But I was going to Miami every week. She was coming up here. It was, that wasn't too much of a strain, you know what I'm saying? But, and just, I think that I think that I wasn't on her time. Like, I wasn't a part of like, she had a plan. I think that ultimately she wanted to be married by a certain time. And even though I had all intentions on marrying her, I just think that it wasn't in the timeline that she wanted. So let me tell you, it was ill, right? She breaks up with me, right? I'm devastated. Okay, I'm like, you know what I mean? This is probably the worst I've felt in ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Devastated, right? And the year, so she breaks with me. Let's say it was like in October. let's say it was October, whatever, right? The following February, she's engaged to somebody else.
Hit that subscribe button. Back to the show.
Engaged.
It wasn't even like 6 months, bro. It might have been like 4 months or something like that. It was so fast. You know, when I found out through my family too. It was interesting.
Wow.
I found out through my cousin called me. I was in New York and my cousin called me. We having a conversation, and I think he was calling me to see if I knew, right? So he called me, and I'm thinking we talking about what you doing in New York? We just talking randomly, right? And then I was like, yo, man, I gotta go into this building. I'm going to this meeting, man. I'm gonna call you when I get out this meeting. Hang up the phone.
Yo,
right?
call me back.
But no, it wasn't even 2 seconds. He called me back 2 seconds later. He said, yo, before you go into this meeting, man, you know, you heard about so-and-so, you know. I was like, what? Like, something happened? You know, I'm like, what happened? He's like, nah, man, like, she getting married. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what month is this? You know what I mean? Like, it happened so fast, right? So that year was just a wild year. It was like, she got engaged. I found out she got engaged, and my man Jackie passed away, and my father passed away. So it was like a wild, you know, year. And I was going through a transitional time financially. So it was like everything at once, right? And I remember the day that it hit me. I was like, oh man, I gotta go see a therapist. Because before it was like, you know, I'm not, you know, when it was just the girl situation, it's like, man, I'm not gonna go therapy for no woman, man. I can handle this. You know what I'm saying? But dog, it was like back to back to back. And it was kind of like, all right, let me go talk to somebody about this.
Does she know?
We've talked about it.
Is she still married?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, married, kids. Oh, the baby happened. Like that. Married, baby, quick, done. You know what I'm saying? So then I had to live with that. Like I had to eat that.
So she got away?
Oh yeah.
For real?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I learned a couple of lessons though. I learned some valuable lessons in that. You know what I'm saying? And what it did too, is that it made me really focus on what was important at the time. And what was important was rebuilding my brand at the time.
Okay.
And, you know, at the time when this happened, my son was 7. Mm-hmm. He was 6 going on 7 when this happened. So it was like, I just really was like, yo, I can't be down, you know, I got to be there for my child. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of things happened during that period, you know. Then I'd always been DJing, but then the DJ gigs started picking up. I really dove into work. One of my great friends and who's been my manager for 30 years almost, you know what I'm saying? His name was Chris Hicks. I remember when I was going through it, Chris was just like, man, just dive into work, man. Just dive, you know, you go to therapy, but use this energy to really get your work going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You know, and get back on your feet. And me and my boy Sean put the plan down, and you know, next thing I know, we start, you know, one by one, brick by brick, you know. And then during that process, that's when me and Keith connected. Okay. Me and Keith connected during that process. And like right in the beginning of my depression, me and Keith connected. And I'll never forget, we was going out like every other night. Keith was just pick me up, we go out every other night. And we go to these parties. This in the middle of like when trap was like popping. Trap is all, you go to the club and it's all one sound, you know, tempo.
Just aggressive.
It was aggressive, whatever. Yeah. Then what happened was, like around 12:30, 12:45, the DJ would do like an hour of like classic R&B, like in the middle of all this trap. And you would watch the party just go lift up. It would go from being like this dark thing to this thing where everybody's dancing and the girls are singing, and you know, and me and Keith would be like, yo, man, we gotta do a party like this, man. Like, we gotta do a night where there's this kind of music for the majority of the night. Yeah. And we would talk about it, and none of us we never would act on it. And I was going out DJing, you know, going out of town and doing parties and stuff like that, and I would come back like, yo, we need some energy like that in Atlanta. And Keith called me one day and was like, yo, Keith's girl was working at SL Lounge. This is back in the day. Keith's girl was working, she was a bartender at SL Lounge. And she was like, Ruggs came to me and was like, y'all always up in here, like, why don't you have your boyfriend do a party? And she almost didn't tell us, because she was just like, SL Lounge, I don't know if that's, Keith's and Brian's, vibe, yeah. But then she told him, and Keith was like, shit,
book it.
We might as well do it.
Yeah.
And Keith came to me, and Keith's pitch, I'll never forget it. Keith's pitch was like, hey, man, I know you're down and out. You know what I'm saying? But he said, listen, man, we got an opportunity to do this party. Yeah. At bare minimum, we get to listen to music you want to listen to and drink for free. You down? I was like, let's do it. And that's how we started R&B Wednesdays.
How many plus ones I get?
Yeah, exactly. And then the first party was cool. It wasn't a lot of people, but the people that were there, Usher pulled up, Carrie Hilson pulled up, Monica pulled up. It was like the right people. Yeah. And it wasn't packed yet. And I remember Ruggs told me, she was like, yo, man, this party's gonna blow up. You know what I mean? And every week, it just, next thing we know, by the time we get to, I think it might have been the second or third month, might have been, you know what I mean? It was off, you know what I mean, to the races. Now, all this is because I was just in a place where I just needed to be somewhere to, I was kind of really just like, man, I just want to hear some music and get drunk, because I'm down.
This is your venting. This is your therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was part of it, for sure.
Call it healthy, call it toxic.
Whatever
this
it is.
This is how you were venting and coping
at that time
with your specific situation.
For sure.
Gee.
Yeah.
I done got all...
I know, we done went all the way around, but this is what this is about. This is why we waited.
Yeah. No, for sure. Because, really, I wanted to talk about something, just the roots of Houston.
Yeah.
Right? And what people don't know is Houston impacted me.
Wow.
Because I went to JUCO in Texas, which is in Brenham. I had to...
Wow.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Right on 290.
Yeah,
so
I know
you got to
exactly
go past
I know exactly
Prayview.
where Brenham is, yeah.
Like, you got to go there. If somebody was going from Houston to Austin, you would take this route and boom. So what are some of the locations that has inspired you, or certain landmarks in Houston that has impacted really the sound, really just the harnessing in that musical
It is
vibe?
so interesting, man. That's such a great question, because Houston is such, especially growing up in Houston in the 90s, it was such a dynamic, diverse thing for me, because I grew up on the southwest side of Houston. It's now specifically the southwest, but when we were growing up, it was just the south side. So we grew up on the south side of Houston. And in the 90s, this is when, that hip hop, that Houston hip hop era really become to form.
Yeah.
This is when people would go to DJ Screw's house to go buy tapes from his crib. You know what I mean? And some days he didn't have tapes. It'd be a crowd outside his house trying to get tapes. He was like, I ain't got no tapes today. You know what I mean? Like, that was the culture. It was like, and you would pass this thing, people would dub the tapes, and that's how you got the tape. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I'm a church kid too. So I grew up playing in church. Okay. I'm an R&B kid. My mother and them love R&B music, so I'm what people call me like a music encyclopedia when it comes to specific music, right? So I grew up listening to all this kind of music, R&B. Then you get old enough, you make friends with people, and you become playing in church. And then I went to this school called the High School for Performing and Visual Arts. It's called Kinder High School for Performing and Visual Arts now, and I met these kids that were creative, these kids that were into different things that exposed me to things I hadn't been exposed to. And then I meet this guy, Robert Glasper, who ended up being one of my best friends. He's my best friend to this day. And he exposed me to this other side. He exposed me to jazz, like proper jazz. So then now I'm listening to things like, so I go from being at home listening to, proper R&B, whether it's, Shalimar and, Earth, Wind & Fire, the OJs, things that, things my mom, Prince, Michael, all the things that, my mother and them listened to, right? And then in the 90s, you you form your own, palette, whether it's Jodeci and Boyz II Men, and, I was always in and out singing groups and all of that, you know what I'm saying? And then you have the hip hop element, which is the local rap scene where everybody's got these screw tapes that's like blazing the city. And then there's this, jazz element that now is being introduced to me that I'm just falling in love with. The Chick Coreas, the Kenny Kirklands, the Oscar Petersons, the Herbie Hancocks, as a piano player, now my ears are like perking up to these things and I wanna learn all of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So all of these things are what properly influenced me creatively. And then you meet people, like I said, Robert Glasper, Greg Curtis, who's like a legend at the crib. He ended up being like one of my mentors. You know what I mean? Like legend, church and on the R&B side. You know what I mean? It just, all of those things, you mix all those things up and that's what, in a nutshell, what shaped me from a music perspective.
Bro, it's crazy because part of me is like, bro, I want you to help me enhance my jazz palette.
Oh, yeah.
Because like right now in my life currently, I want voiceless music.
Word.
Bro, I'm here, bro.
Really?
I'm on a plane last night and I don't wanna hear nobody's voice. I just wanna go somewhere.
Wow.
Like I want to go. There's a group that's called Explosions in the Sky, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just sound. They've been in some of the most iconic movies that I know. Friday Night Lights. Yeah. They've been in Lone Survivor. Many different many different movies, but they were the scores in that music and in the movies. And it's like, yo, I want this sound. Mm-hmm. And, my lady always know, like, anytime you see me do this with my phone, I'm Shazamming. I'm Shazam. Bro, I could be watching the show and I
feel you.
Trying to find something just to Shazam it, because I'm at that time where you get old and you start forgetting stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really muscle memory exercises. How do I trigger these sounds? And it's really by listening to music, frequencies, and nobody's voice. Because I would hate to be listening to something and I just start singing along like, and then it's just like, hold on, what was I? Yeah. So now the older I get, it's like, yo, I really want to have these exercises that I do, and I've always meditated, but in a more rich way throughout the day that it's not bringing me too low.
I get it.
Where, bro, I could be places and I just, like, wait, what? What were we happening?
Yeah.
But that kind of sound, bro, I want your help.
Yeah, I got you. I mean, literally, that's it plays such a major part of just my balance in my life. Like I'll get up and I'll listen to, a duo piano album by Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea. It's only them playing piano. There's no other instruments. Yeah. It's, or you may listen to a solo piano album by Herbie. You know what I mean? Or like, Robert would do his trio albums where it's just, there's no singers. It's just the trio doing, their thing. You know what I mean? It can set the tone for the rest of your day and, the whole situation.
From piano to just sound, ambient sounds to acoustic. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Like, yeah,
man.
You've been from Houston. Take me through how you met Beyonce.
Okay, that's a really good story too. We all were part of this thing called the People's Workshop, right? So just back in the day, it was like, if you grew up in the 90s, it felt like there was a lot of kid artists, a lot of teenage artists that came out. Think about all of our legends, from Usher to Monica to Brandy to, you know what I mean? Yeah. It felt like it was a lot of kids being signed. Another Bad Creation, Criss Cross, Subway. It just felt like it was a lot of kids being signed to labels in the 90s, you know what I mean? And having hit records.
Correct.
So that, I think, is what inspired, I forgot the guy who started the People's Workshop, I can't remember his name, but I think that's what inspired him to do the People's Workshop, right? And it would be a bunch of kids, whether you're in groups, solo, you know, whatever. It was like a competition. And it would lead up to this thing called the Sammy Davis Jr. Awards. I don't know if they got the right to use his name or not, but I just know that it would lead up to this thing. And that's actually where I met Robert Glasper. That's where I met my very first love, this girl Judith. That's where I met, you know what I mean? Like, it was a group, you know, it was like a condensed amount of kids that—
Was it a community? Was this a club?
No, it was just like I don't know, have you ever heard like NAACP AXO, the AXO competition?
No.
It was like, that. It felt like it was just a group of kids and competing for like, you know, to get to the next level.
Was this a talent show?
Like talent show, basically.
Okay.
And so we all knew about each other in this People's Workshop thing. And eventually, when like the high school I went to, eventually Beyonce and LaToya ended up coming to our school.
Okay.
All right, so I met them before they got there through this guy named Preston Middleton via the People's Workshop situation. And we became fast friends. We were all young. I'm a little older than they are. But, you know, we were all, you know, we all interested in
the same community of music.
Yeah. And they ended up coming to my high school, you know, their freshman year, and I was just going to my senior year. And we just became, you know, really fast friends, you know what I mean? You know, their father, you know, took to me early on.
Yeah.
My mother took to me early on, Miss Tina. You know, I was a songwriter. So I was like one of the very few people that knew that they had a record deal or they were getting a record deal, you know what I mean? So, you know, when I found that out, you know, we would talk all the time about how is it, you know, what is the business like? And even when they went to Oakland to work with Dwayne Wiggins, rest in peace, Dwayne Wiggins from 2020 Tone, they were the only people my mom would let me call long distance. Like my mom, because it was like my mother knew that they were doing something
They
positive.
were doing it. They were doing something that you wanted to do.
And she wanted me to know that it was possible. So it's like, okay, if your friends who are younger than you are doing this, you can do this too.
Yeah.
So she would allow me to talk to them. That's why to this day, me and Kelly and LaToya, we all like this, you know, because that was a time of exploration for me, and it really made it real for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That they were doing it. You know what I mean? And you know, those moments led to us, you know, having like my very first session with them. You know what I'm saying? And I'll never forget it. It was like the aha moment. So you know, when you're a kid, you're like, okay, man, I want to be an artist. You know, I'm in groups. Me and my boys doing groups, and you know what I mean. And you know, I knew that I always wanted to be a producer. I always wanted to write songs. You know what I mean? That was something I always wanted to do. But I just kind of felt like, okay, I'll do it for my group. You know what I mean? The moment I had that moment with Beyonce and Kelly, LaToya and LaTavia, we're in the studio working on these songs, and I'm like giving them direction, and they giving it back to me. Like, you know, they were so above and beyond. You know, at that point, they were so ready. I don't think people realize how ready they were at that age. You know what I'm saying? So I was blown away, right? But it hit me. I was like, I was working with Greg and T and my boy Scooby, who passed away too. But it hit me in that moment. I was like, oh no, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Like, I don't want to be in no group. I don't want to make no albums. I don't want, you know, what I want to do is I want to be behind this board. I want to give direction. I want to make music for other people.
Wow.
They are the reason why that thing happened to me, or happened for me.
That's so beautiful.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I've always had a high respect and adoration for all of them, because they really gave me, you know, they
They triggered it.
They triggered it. You know, your kids on the phone and it's three-way and y'all talking. You know what I mean? We were talking about music. It wasn't even like, you know, kids be talking about frivolous things on the phone. Yeah. Like, they would tell me, like, they would play me whatever they were working on over the phone, you know? And like, yo, listen to this, Brian. I'm like, man, that shit sounding crazy.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
But even for perspective, right? Yeah. And I chuckled a little bit because people don't realize, I mean, you just said it, like, my mom would let me call them in Oakland. But back in the day, long distance calls was like, it was extra. It was expensive. Yeah. Like, you didn't have, they used to have a promo code, free nights and weekends.
Free night, yes.
Nights and weekends started at 7 p.m. So like, I'll call you after 7.
After 7,
you know what I mean? And, that was with the cell phones. Well, with the landlines, you wouldn't know until the bill came back. And then when the bill came, it was like, yo, who in the world calling somebody over here in Houston or Oakland or got like
$1.50 a minute.
You know,
$2 a minute.
My
bill is $400.
Yeah, so to have that clearance from Mom Dukes, but also that's different with that mental understanding of y'all were in high school.
Yeah, I mean, they had just gotten to high school, so they had been on that trajectory from like elementary school, middle school. They had just gotten to high school. I was a senior, when all this stuff was happening. They had just gotten to high school, and they were already in the 9th grade. They were already above and beyond. Like, it was like you knew that they were going to be stars.
That's great. Like, I think it's so important for people to understand the dreaming aspect of what moves you, right? And the Bible says faith without work is dead.
It's dead.
So God could put certain things on your heart. You can have these interventions. You can have these different visions and saying like, man, I'm going to be a millionaire. And you know your skill, right? But you don't act on it. You don't work towards it. And to have that thought process where like, this is what I want to do. And you work towards that. And also assembling or being around like-minded people.
That when I say that is everything. That is everything. I always tell people that I'm so grateful for that school I went to, for me going to HSPVA, because I was around people that we all would working together to sharpen each other's thing.
Yeah.
So people knew in high school that I was going after being a producer. It was like, that was known. It was like, Brian's going to be a producer. You know what I mean? Like I said, my first love, it was known that she was going to be on Broadway. She's on Broadway right now.
Wow. Killing
it. You know what I mean? It was known that Robert, we knew the day Robert walked in the door what he was going to be. It was like, he's what he is today, he was then.
Yeah.
Like, just a genius.
Yeah.
Walking in, just play anything, just crazy. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like all these people that we know that we came up with, that we came up together, it was like once you put all that energy in one building, you can't help but try to be the best you can be.
For sure.
You know what I'm
saying? You're so rich with names and acknowledging certain things that has impacted you. Where would you place yourself as far as all-time producers?
That's a good question. Yeah. I'd be remiss not to include my brother Jermaine Dupri in this, because we obviously have a lot of music together. And I always credit him for giving me one of the biggest lessons in producing.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was producing before I met him, but he gave me one of the biggest lessons that I still carry with me today, that, don't crowd the song. Like, 2 things. Don't crowd the song, don't overproduce. And then the second thing from songwriting is the song is in the conversation. So how we talking right now? You know what I mean? There are multiple songs in what we talking about. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And
so don't crowd the song. And what was the second?
The song is in the conversation. Wow. Right? I learned that we were doing You Got It Bad. That's why I learned that. You know what I mean? And so for me, all-time producers, I got to be up there because, dog, we're still doing it. Yeah. I'm still doing it. There are people who I started with, a lot of people who I started with, who who aren't doing it on the level that we're doing it on at this level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I had somebody tell me recently that the run that we have going on is really almost impossible. Do you know what I mean? You look at Jermaine came in the game in 91. I came in the game in 97. Here we are this year with one of the biggest songs ever. Money Long made for me. That's this year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pressure was 2 years ago. Don't Waste My Time was 3 years ago. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything that we're doing especially for Black culture.
No, for sure.
This is now.
So
you know what I mean?
who would you put on that recognition list, dare I say top 5, top 3,
Yeah.
that you would say, yo, these producers and me are something that has withstood the test of time?
I would say Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis off rip. You know what I'm saying? I would say there's so many. I think that you gotta say Dr. Dre. You gotta say you gotta say like a Dr. Luke. You gotta say Timbaland. You got. To me, my list is long. There's Teddy Riley.
Keep going.
You gotta say Teddy Riley. You gotta say Tricky Stewart in the Drink Tricky and Dream. You gotta say you gotta say Rodney Jerkins. You gotta say there's my man who's people don't realize this guy's been around for a long time, but he's still making hit records. A guy named D-Mile. D-Mile produced Bruno Mars and Victoria Monet, and you know what I'm saying? And he's getting his recognition now. One producer of the year, 2 years in a row. You know what I mean? But he's been around for a minute. He's a vet in this thing.
You know what I found most interesting about even this specific question is that this is a collective of individuals that say, you know what, I don't want to say the puppet master, but I want to inspire other people through their skill by way of me. You know what I'm saying? I'm the fuel to the engine, so to speak. And it's tough because these days, even the producers of this day and age are on the front end of the notoriety. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like, yo, a lot of those names that you said, if they walked, if they showed them, I wouldn't know. No. And that's my negligence. That's my miseducation of just this skill. But you guys have been able to say, you know what, it's not about me. I know that you're an extreme talent. You got the look, you got the sound, you got the everything. And I want to work with you.
With you. Yeah.
And that's not common.
And for us, right? For me, I get joy out of seeing things like that come to fruition. Like I get, to me, it makes me happy to go to a Jagged Edge show and, 70% of the music is music I made for them. Wow. You know what I'm saying? It makes me happy to go to an Usher show and have a whole segment of music that, Jermaine and I made for him.
But it's that does nothing to you when people are singing songs, when you sing.
Oh, no, it's crazy every time. Like, every time. It's not a moment where it's like, I'm cool. Like, it's a moment where it's like, yo, this is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, watching everybody. Like, Chris Brown posted something. He was at South Africa, did a show in South Africa. Yeah. And all those people, right? It was like, I don't know how many people, it was a gang of people, like, it was ridiculous. I did a song for him called Say Goodbye. And to see everybody singing this song that we did 20 years ago, it's like, wow. I've been on tour with Usher every night, every single night, from Vegas to the tour, every single night, to see the crowd of those people, you know what I mean? It's like, it never, when I say it never gets old.
Do you know, oh, this the one, or this the one?
You rarely know. Sometimes you know, though. I'll say this. There have been moments where I felt it like, I think we got it.
Yeah.
And it was what it was. It ended up being a hit. I think that, you know, when we did You Got It Bad, it felt like, yeah, this is a hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We walked away from that like, yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You feel like you got,
you know what I mean?
the ace of spades.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that with Mary's Be Without You, I feel like when we finished that song, it was like, you know, this is it. Like, we know, I knew that song was gonna change everything for me. Like, I was like, okay, this song is...
That's because it's funny that you say that, because I was gonna ask what song was really the song that, two things, not only validated the community to be like, yo, who is this? Like, who is he? And then also, too, when did you give yourself the credit that I'm him?
So that's a great question. I think that the song that changed it for me from a visibility perspective was Jagged Edge, He Can't Love You. Because that was the first, I mean, I had a hit record before that. I did a record with a group called Ideal called Get Gone.
Yeah.
That was a hit record before that. But I don't think that people, you know, it was before people really knew a kid who the producer was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think He Can't Love You was the first thing that made, at least Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, say, okay, this kid, he did one record, okay, now he did this record. And Jermaine, I think what said a lot about it was that usually, you know, Jermaine, you know, he owns So So Def, he usually produces all the songs, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think what spoke loudly to the city, really, was that he picked a song that he didn't produce. Wow. You know what I'm saying? To be Jagged Edge's first single.
Right.
And I think that spoke loudly to the city. Like, okay, well, why, you know, Jermaine don't ever do this, so he rarely does this. Who was this kid? You know what I mean? And I think that is what got me like going in the city. But the moment, the I'm him moment, the like, oh yeah, like this is, you know what I mean?
Right.
Was the Mary moment. I think for me, because I was up against a lot of adversity during that period. You know what I mean? There was a lot of random turmoil going on in different spots of my life, business-wise. A lot of like doubt with labels, you know, a lot of, you know, it was just a lot going on at the time. And when we got the call, you know, Jimmy Iovine called and was like, you know, can you guys make this record? And I remember somebody telling me that, you know, Jimmy wasn't really, you know, he didn't really like R&B music like that, you know, but because Mary's such a big artist, he has to support it, you know what I mean? So he didn't really get it, you know, he was like, I don't really get R&B, but okay, I'm gonna call these guys, I think, you know. And I remember being like, oh, this is gonna be a challenge, like I'm ready for this challenge. Yeah. And we wrote the song, and then, you know, along with my, you know, compadres, this guy named Ron Fair, who was the chairman of Geffen Records at the time, we made the record a record. You know what I'm saying? And I remember getting the mix back. I remember being in New York, and I was working with Joe at the time. We were at the Zamba Studios, and I got it back. And I would never forget, Akon was in the room, Divine was in the room. And I was like, y'all want to hear this Mary song? Like, I just, you know, I got the mix back. We're going to listen back. And I remember when we played the song, played the mix back, the final mix, you could hear a pin drop in the room. It was kind of like, Akon was just like, yo, that's the best shit I've ever heard. Like, it was like, you know what I mean? It was kind of like, and for me, and I was like, okay, this record's gonna change it. It's gonna make people absolutely know, and it's gonna make people go back and look at, because I had done a gang of stuff before that.
Yeah,
so when people go back, so, all right, let's look up Bryan-Michael Cox and see what's what. And then you see all these records, then people start connecting the dots.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People start connecting the dots.
Then, and just so people do connect the dots, right? I'm gonna list off some songs that you had a hand in, you know, developing, right? Let's start with Jagged Edge. Let's Get Married. He Can't Love You. All right, let's go to Mary J. Blige. And these are not all the songs. These are just some of the songs that you would necessarily be like, oh, that's, you know what I mean? So Mary J. Blige, Be Without You. Usher, Burn, and Confessions Part 2. Monica, You Should Have Known Better. Chris Brown, the Goodbye Song, right? Mariah Carey, Shake It Off. Wow. I Stay in Love, and Don't Forget About Us. Usher's most recent album, the Coming Home album. This is an interesting statistics. Over 100 million records sold during your career.
Yeah.
Also involvement with Danity Kane.
Yeah.
Right?
And so like what's interesting about Danity Kane and Day 26 is that, you know, I helped put those groups together. Like if you watch Making a Band, you know, they brought me in, I'm just saying, like, this is after the Mary thing. So now I'm super visible and I get a call, you know, to come do Making a Band. Danity Kane, they had just put Danity Kane together. And they didn't have a name yet at the time. You know, when Puff brought me in, they didn't have a name.
Yeah.
Came in, met the girls. I knew D Woods already. You know, I'd known for her being around the industry. And we clicked, and, you know, they ended up being like, with, you know, an extension of me. And that led to me doing the next season of Making a Band.
Wow.
The next season of Making a Band is when we went around, and I basically, that group, Day 26, are the 5 guys that I picked. Between me and Michael Bivins, those are the 5 guys that, you know, we were like, yo, these are our guys.
See, you don't know these things because of the big persona of Diddy, right?
But it took him to say, I want B. Cox, Michael Bivins, Joe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's still, you know, it's still a genius.
But that says a lot, though, because it's like, I mean, contrary to the obvious of that situation now, that there's still no denying the brilliance of who he is. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? There is certain things that nobody could do what he did. And for you to be there, for you to also have an eye, an ear, and a voice to say, no, something's, hold on, sing that one more time.
Yep.
Okay, like the look. How did you nurture that strength? And what actually is, like I'm talking, I know what I'm trying to say. It's not, it's basic words, but what gives you, right, the fortitude to know that this artist possesses something that I can get out?
It's really a feeling, right? I think that ultimately I've done things that I didn't like, right? And I know how that feels. You know, I've done things I felt like, why am I doing this? You
Explain.
know? Like, I've worked with people that I feel like might have been a waste of time. Like, wait, you know, nothing's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like, you learn from every situation. But I've done things that I felt like, man, why am I doing this? Then I've done things that made me feel like, yo, this is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember meeting Jasmine Sullivan for the first time, or hearing her and then meeting her. You know what I'm saying? And she might have been 15 at the time. You know what I mean? I remember being in the studio like, yo, this is the most incredible person you know what I mean? Like,
talent.
I felt, you know what I mean? It was like you knew it, even at 15, and maybe the label didn't get it at the time because they were trying to, you know, whatever. But you just knew. Once she figures out her thing, this is gonna go crazy. Because this is just, it's ridiculous. I will work with her every single day and be happy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, for me, it's, and there's a lot of people I've met in that space. I met Chris Brown when he was 15. I met Trey Songz when he was 16. You know what I'm saying? I met, you know, a lot of these are Justin Bieber when he was 12, you know what I mean? Or 13, 12 or 13, something like that. You know what I mean? And each of these people, when you meet them, it's like, something drew me to them. Maybe like, yo, you know, I want to, give me a few more days with this kid. Yeah. Let's figure out.
But for those big names that you've named, there's also names that will remain nameless because of what specific skill. Like, what did they have that the other, and dare I say kids, because it's talent. Like, there's, no matter the age, you could be a 40-year-old singer. And it's just like, you just don't got it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, how do you voice that? Like, how did you, like, when you mean, going back to the topic of, like, you wasting your time, right? What is the characteristic that you just say, like, nah, this ain't it?
If I feel like I'm forcing it, if it feels like, man, I'm, or if I feel like, this just not good, you know what I mean? I'm normally non-confrontational, right, by nature. I'm just a non-confrontational person. But when it comes to my art and when it comes to being creative, there's a threshold, you know what I'm saying, where I'm feeling like, if I could sing it better than you, and granted, I mean, I sing a little bit. I do, when I write my songs, demos, but I don't consider myself an artist by no means, right? If I can sing it better than you, then why are you here? And that's kind of like where I'm at with it. When I get to that place, like, all right, we've exercised our time here, man. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And because it don't matter. I've tried to do things for money. I've tried to do things like, okay, they're paying me whatever to work with this kid or work with this guy or whatever. And I had a situation, right, I can think about right now. I don't want to name the artist. I'm not going to do that. But I have the situation some years ago with this artist. And, the label was kind of like, oh, he's the next Usher or whatever, right? And I remember the A&R was like, yeah, because, Usher's not really a good singer like that. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? I was like, are we talking about Usher Raymond IV? We talking about, you know what I mean?
Usher.
Like, I said,
My way?
Yeah, I was like,
come on.
So I knew off rip that this session was about to be terrible, because if the A&R is leading with that, I'm like, we not talking about the same Usher. You know what I mean? And I remember me saying that, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But then he brings the artist in, and the artist was just, he was about fame. He wasn't really about the artistry of inside the studio. He wasn't talented. He already had the starter kit on with, the jewelry and it was just, and I was like, bro, you didn't put one song out yet. Like, why? Well, who gave you, Yeah. And, and I remember, we got through the first session, but I remember saying, like, this guy is trash, and I would never work with him again. And then some kind of way, maybe about a year or so later, they booked him with JD. And I get a call, like, yo, JD got, you and JD got a session, they're cool. And I go to the session, and it's him. And I'm like,
You again.
So I'll never forget this. We write, me and Jermaine write a song. I think we might have wrote it with Jonte. And Jermaine leaves. He's like, okay, yeah, you got it, right? So now I'm back in the driver's seat producing this guy who I said I would never produce again because he was terrible. And this is when I was drinking Hennessy. So I just started downing. I had a rental give me a bottle of Hennessy, and I started downing, just drinking Hennessy, because this dude was just that terrible. So I'm like, I got to get through this some kind of way. And I remember by the time Jermaine came back, I'm a half bottle in, and I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs, like, get this right. I'm like, yo, you can't be this whack.
Yeah.
Jermaine's like, oh, that's enough. That's enough. Pull him out.
Get him out of there.
Get him out of here. It's enough. You know what I'm saying? So I just learned to just not put myself in them kind of situations no more. If I'm not feeling it, if you're
not moved.
Yeah, if I meet an artist and we get a chance to get into a session and it's not working.
No, the golden question is that artist known now?
No, I mean he had one record.
Okay.
Yeah, he had one record. He's not in the business anymore, but he had one record.
Wow. And you keep mentioning these sessions. Who creates? Take me through, how is a session curated, made, and how does it happen?
Well, it all depends. Like, me and Jermaine have sessions every day, but I don't know to call them sessions, we just go to the studio.
Yeah. That's the office.
Yeah, so we go to the studio, you write songs, you come up with beats, those are sessions too. That's like one kind of session. But then, like, for example, you know, when we get a call to do Ari Lennox, you know, then the label has to, you know, they set up the studio, or if they come to Atlanta, we'll work at, you know, our spot, and they'll do a PO, which is like an invoice, you know, for the studio. They'll pay for the engineer. So usually it's me, Jermaine, either a songwriter, or if just me and Jermaine writing a song, you know, it might just be me and him, but me, Jermaine, a songwriter, or a group of songwriters, and then there'll be an engineer, a recording engineer, you know what I mean, and an assistant. And you try to make the environment as comfortable and as, inviting for the artist as, you know, you can. For us, like I said earlier, the song is in a conversation. So for me, it's very, very important to have extensive dialogue with the artist. So like I said, I'll bring Ari up again when we've been working with Ari for a minute. And what happens is she'll come in the studio and we'll talk, we'll chop it up, you know? What's going on in your life? What's going on, you know, we'll just talk about random things, and that's how, you know, things to get started. So like even her new song, Soft Girl Era, right? We went in the studio and we just talk about a bunch of different things. And we got to this subject and she was like, you know, JD, what's the phrase? Like, what's that, you know, what is it about women? What do you see women talking about? You know, and Jermaine was like, you know, everybody want to go in it, get in that soft girl era, and that's how, you know, we're gonna start there, and then, you know, the song happens. You know, we start throwing out lines, start melodies.
Bro, this sounds
becomes
like
a thing.
A therapy session.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's therapy.
Like literally, dim the lights. Where's the sage? Palo Santo. Clear your mind. What's on your mind? What's on your heart? What are you going through?
It's literally that. Like, I can't tell you how many conversations we have with Usher on the regular. It could be, I mean, you know, we could not be in a studio. You know, we got a group chat. He'll call us, like, everything, like I said, we're talking right now. Yeah. There's a song in this, or a couple songs in this. Everything, for me, that's the way I process it. You know, it's every conversation has the potential to be a song.
But I want to talk about something that you mentioned with the artist is, dare I say, no-nos, but do you identify if this artist is a craftsman, or they're just in it for the notoriety? You said that he led with fame, or she led with fame, right? Is there something that you really can identify, like, yo, you gotta work? Because when I think about an artist, when I think about a rapper, when I think about a songwriter, it's just like, where do you go to work? Like, you know, do you go to the club? Do you go to the studio? Like when you say, yo, I'm at the yo, or I'm at the here, I'm at there, it's like the people who really work, is that identifiable?
Absolutely. I mean, that's how Jermaine identified me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm a person that, I'm gonna stay in the studio till they get right. You know, I'll do a million ideas before we get, to get to the proper one. You know what I'm saying? I just think that that's what's necessary to be if you want to be the best. I want to be considered one of the best. Like, you know, for me, it's bigger than, you know, notoriety. It's bigger than money. You know what I'm saying? I just want one day at the end of it, right? Like we look at Quincy Jones, at the end of it, the totality of what his career,
body of work, just
it's forever cemented. You know what I mean? From Frank Sinatra to Michael Jackson, it's the most diverse catalog you probably have ever seen, right? So for me, that's what motivates. That's the motivation.
So you seem to produce a significant amount of love songs, Heartbreaks, and R&B classics. Are these songs personal experiences, or is that a collaborative kind of, like, you feeling like that? I'm feeling like this too. Like,
It's always a collaborative thing. Like, I think that, like, I could give you an example, like Burn, for example, right? So I was in the middle of going through something at the time, and I don't play video games, right? Yeah, but I got to the studio one day and I would just cut the video game on and I'm playing the video. So Jermaine walks in the lounge like, yo, man, what's wrong with you? You playing video games? Like, I don't, you know.
That ain't true.
And I get to telling him, you know, what was happening, right? And at the end of the conversation, he was like, man, you guys just let that shit burn, dog. And he said it like that. Now, unbeknownst to me, I always say this, like Jermaine's like Kaiser Soze. Like he's always got multiple things happening at the same time, or multiple conversations happening. So what happens is, I'm telling him about something, but he was talking to Usher about something earlier. So the concept for burn came from the first conversation.
He was the dot connector.
He was already, so he already had burn or the word burn in his mind brewing already because he had a conversation with Usher about something totally different, you know, and whatever situation that was. And in that conversation, he said the same thing. So it was just the theme of the day for him. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yo, that's a song. He was like, let's go write it. And we wrote it. You know what I mean? So that's, you know, like I said, Burn's not like autobiographical.
No, for
but
sure.
it's a collaborative, it's always a collaborative thing. Like I said, the conversation.
Right. So as you're going through these things, right, are you actively dating now?
That's a really good question. Actually,
It's not a trick question. It's like...
that's a good question. No, I'm not actively dating. No.
Okay.
I'm not.
So you a city boy?
I'm not a city boy neither, though.
Make it make sense.
Okay, so I am really involved in my work. Like, I'm really involved. I have filled my calendar up to the brim. By the time it's all over with, I'm so tired that I don't really even have time to do none of that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna keep it real.
Please.
For me, this is the most focused I've ever been.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I feel like I'm getting the most done, making the most progress, intentional progress in my life. You know what I'm saying? And it's because you know, like I said, have I dated throughout the years? Like the last girlfriend I had was 10 years ago when I told you the story.
10?
Almost 10. Yeah, that's 9 years ago. It was 2016.
10?
Yeah, 2016. So have I, you know, dated here and there in the past 9 years? Yeah. But like something that's like, you know, serious or something, or even if if I have been dating around, nah, like for real, I've been really focused on getting my heart right, my mind right.
Healing.
Healing. And I'm at a space now, dog, where I told somebody the other day, I said, I'm open to it now.
Okay.
For a minute, I've been close to it, and I would get involved with people and knowing that there was a threshold, and knowing there was an expiration date. Not knowing when it was gonna come, but knowing that I was gonna get to a point where it's like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I needed more time to heal. And I also was fighting myself for a bit because I didn't want to feel like, why is it taking so long? You know what I mean? I was kind of beating myself up about like, man, I want to move on. Why is this taking so long? You know what I mean? But sometimes you just gotta take the time. Sometimes it just takes time. And I'm in a space now where I'm completely open to it.
But it's so crazy because, like, I mean, you being open to it now, your work have shown those anthems come by way of a lover, a person who desires a relationship or has came out of a relationship in search of a relationship, you know. Let's get married. Like, those things ain't no single city boy music.
Well,
this is...
if you think about the eras of those songs, you know, like the eras of Let's Get Married, I was in a proper relationship, like a serious one. You know what I mean? You think about Be Without You, you know, I was in a proper, I had just come out of a relationship, a proper relationship that I've been in for, you know, years. You know what I mean? So I've had long-term relationships all through my 20s, all through my early 30s. You know what I'm saying? It's just been the last 10 years. It's been
So
stuff.
You said the word era. What would you say this era is?
This era is, that's a good question. This era is me being a proper grown-up. You know what I'm saying?
For you?
Yes, for me. Me acknowledging and accepting that, you know what, man, I'm actually, I'm the cool uncle, but I'm a proper, I'm a grown-up. I have a 14-year-old son.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just really accepting that whole thing. You know what I'm saying?
Make it make sense. I like where you at.
Yeah, like, when you're younger, you have room, you make room to be careless. You know what I mean? You allow yourself cushion to be careless. Recklessness doesn't really, you might feel the brunt of recklessness, you might get but it don't really click until you get older, right? That's why when you get older, you look back at your mistakes or you look back at things that happened in the past and I go, damn, you know what I mean? Like, what was I on? You know what I mean? Because now, I would never do what that was. I would never be with that situation. I would never put myself in a situation now. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's about proper growth. So I feel like I'm very, very specific about who I bring into my world, my energy, which goes to another reason why I've been so guarded when it comes to dating. You know what I'm saying? Because it's easy to be like, man, we could be out. I mean, I do the party every week. I'm in the party business. I'm in the music business. That's
work for you. That's not play.
Exactly.
That's work.
I put it in a space where it's like, and that's why if you ever you've been to the party, like y'all see me and I move around and everybody has this affinity with me because when it comes to the women that work for us, when it comes to all of the people that we host, I try to, I keep it very light. I keep it very cool. I don't want nobody to feel like, somebody on some weird, I want every person around me to feel comfortable. I want all the women in our area to feel comfortable. I want them to feel like,
bro, you're speaking, and I understand you completely. Even with talking to you, this is you. Like, this is work for you. Mm-hmm. No matter if it's at a club, no matter if it's at a studio. It's like, bro, you're curating a vibe. You're curating a comfortable energy it's nothing wrong with that.
Because it's still true, right? The only way I'm going to get the best out of a person as a producer is if they're comfortable.
Wow.
The only way I'm going to get the best out of a customer or out of a patron at the spot or get the beautiful women to come back every week is if they feel comfortable. Like, oh, girl, we with Bryan. It's all good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, we know we're gonna be taken care of. We know Bryan ain't on no weird shit.
Yeah.
We know that this, that, and the third. The only way that you keep that synergy going, you know what I mean, is to make people feel safe and comfortable.
Wow.
And for me, that is my number one goal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Is to make the people around me feel safe, comfortable. Trust is like the most important thing to me.
Yeah. So, now as you're talking, are you fearful of a relationship?
That's part of it too.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
like
part
where,
of it. That was
where,
part of it for sure.
Where you felt something that you don't want to feel no more.
Oh, bro, yeah. Like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I hadn't been in that space, really. I mean, when you're young, you have like young heartbreak is one thing, right? And I never let young heartbreak define my view of love. I know a lot of people, my friends, my homeboys. If you have a heartbreak early on, that might define how you view love and women and all that for the rest of your life. I wasn't that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't let my first heartbreak or my first real adult heartbreak define how I view love. but I also feel like I had something that I was going after as far as my career I could hold on to. So it was like I had such a love for you'd be creating music, and you know what I mean? So I feel like it balanced itself out when I was younger.
Yeah.
To be, you know, that happened when I was, I was, 30, 38 years old, you know what I mean? To be, to me, that late in the game, to say I'm gonna,
Do you feel that pressure?
I don't feel it anymore.
Okay.
I will say that there was a moment of time where I felt it, and I kind of jumped into a situation that I probably shouldn't have jumped into, but it's because it was like when my son is getting older, his mama was getting married, and it was just a bunch of things going on, and it was just like, well, man, I want to be able to.
It's the timeline.
Yeah, I don't want my son to feel like, oh, well, my dad is never gonna find nobody. I was in that space, and I jumped in the situation. It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? But it was short-lived, very short-lived, because for me, I realized, I did this for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she made it easy for me to break it off too, so it wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it was like, all right, you know what I mean? But other than that, it was like, there was fear, you know what I mean, for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't have that fear anymore. I just,
Let me ask you this. So while you're, let's say, vibe curating, would you prefer a woman to shoot her shot at you, or do you want to take the conventional route of you shooting your shot to her?
I'm more of a conventional person. I like when I see something, I want to go after it, but I'm easy right now, bro. Like, I'm easy. Like, if energy is energy. If we feeling it, I'm an energy person. It's like, it's one thing to be like, yo, you see somebody and you want to tell this person, and that's good. That the pursuit is fun, it's challenging. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I'm also a person that deals with energy. Like, so if I feel that there's some chemistry happening, the chemistry's gonna do what it's gonna do.
For sure.
You know what I mean? The conversation's gonna strike up, the chemistry's gonna do what it's gonna do. To me, I don't feel like I'm on the prowl like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But just,
you ain't thirsty.
Yeah, never.
How do the magical collaborations happen between producer and artist? And this is like free game, for the people who are watching, but.
I think ultimately the magic is, like I said earlier, the conversation. I feel like setting the tone, right? So, give an example, my first time working with Mariah, right? Jermaine, her already best of friends at the time. And this is my first time working with her. My first time actually working with a superstar, I felt like. You know what I mean? This is like, 98, so I'm fresh, fresh in the music business. And we get the call, like, yo, Brian, Jermaine wants to meet at the studio, Mariah's gonna come, so I'm nervous, This is Mariah Carey, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what the energy's gonna be like. You know what I'm saying? Because all I know is like, this is the biggest artist ever, you know what I mean? And when you see on TV, you just see superstar. So this when we was working, Jermaine had to studio at the house, we was working at the house at the time. And she pulls up, I'm nervous, because I'm like, man, what are we gonna write? Like, what can I write? What can I make for her? What can I play for her? She's just Mariah Carey. And, Jermaine, because he knows her well, I was able to kind of follow his lead on how, on what to create from a beat perspective. We kind of came up with an idea. And I thought, okay, cool. Me and Jermaine made the beat. I'm gonna walk out the room, And Mariah was like, no, I want to sit and I want to talk to you. You need to, I want you to write with us. Mm-hmm. And she broke the ice in a way, she was like, I want you in the room. Like, I need you in the room, And I remember being like, word, And it also gave me, when I felt that I probably wasn't at my most confident, wow. You know what I'm saying? That gave me a strike of confidence, like, if Mariah Carey wants me in the room with Jermaine Dupri, then I must really bring something to the table.
For sure. Your catalog of artists is so rich that's an inclusive or collaborative effort. Mm-hmm. What artists are not so inclusive? Like, you said Right to Beat, I'm gonna lead a room. Like, who are those isolated?
I remember, of course, certainly nervous to be around Janet Jackson, but Jan also made it comfortable, Like, I guess you could tell that I was nervous and she made it comfortable too. My first time working with Boyz II Men, just back in the day, it was, on fire. It's like, how do you navigate, in a room with this superstar group? I got to tell Sean Stockman what to sing, or I got to tell Wanye what to sing, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on here, you know what I mean? But I remember they made it what I noticed is that the bigger the artist, for the most part, the more humble they are.
Wow.
Like, for real. Like, Beyonce is probably one of the most humblest artists in the studio. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't hear stories about her wilding out in the studio. She gets work, she'll ask you, what do you think? And you're like, yo, you're Beyonce. You know what I mean? I feel like, you get to a place where, you start working with, big artists, and you realize that these artists are just, they're humble, they recognize the weight of their talent,
right,
and they handle it with care.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's, as you speak about Beyonce, and she's obviously the queen, but we've seen different evolutions of her, right? Now she's in country, and all the accolades just pours in. Have you ever thought about changing genres?
I mean, obviously I produced jazz albums. I've won Grammys for jazz. I've been in Nashville. It was just before anybody was doing the country thing. I've worked with, Marcus Hummins, who, worked with Rascal Flatts and, all those different things. I've done my run in Nashville. For me, urban, like black music is just what's innately, natural for me. You know what I'm saying? But I've definitely done, obviously I've done, a lot of hip hop. I've done Jadakiss, I've done Bow Wow, Nelly. You know what I'm saying? For me, I'll definitely go out of my way to try to mix it up. You know what I'm saying?
Like, it's R&B and hip hop is almost like twins to some degree.
To some degree.
It has a lot of tones that are not as aggressive as each other.
Yeah.
But when you see a gospel project, you see a country project, jazz you mentioned, pop, or one of those type of like, oh.
But gospel for me is more between the R&B than hip hop is. Yeah. So I've done a lot of gospel because it's I play the church, you know what I mean? That's where it comes from. But yeah, I try my best to mix it up, and I'm going to actually take it up a few notches this year. Yeah. With that, you know what I mean? I'm going after artists that I normally wouldn't work with. You know what I'm saying?
Do you care to share?
I can't yet because there's, I don't want to.
Contractually?
You know what I mean?
And I respect that. While working with many high-profile artists, have you had to manage conflicting opinions or find a way to bring everyone together to create something special, i.e. a Quincy Jones, We Are the World situation?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, Jermaine did What's Going On. We did a thing for for the global AIDS things back in like 2001.
Yeah.
And watching that come together was, was incredible and stressful, and because all the different,
and it's a lot of energy.
It's a lot of moving parts. You know what I mean? But I feel like that's our goal in every session. You have to get everybody on the same page: the engineer, the songwriter, the artist. If you got a group, you know what I mean? Like, I work with groups. I worked with 112, Day 26, Jagged Edge. I work with every idea. I came in the game working with groups, and they're not always on the same page. You know what I mean? As a group, you're dealing with individuals, and you don't know what kind of vibe each person's going to be on that particular day. You know what I'm saying? So you have to navigate that. You know, they may be having some internal thing going on, you have no idea. Then the energy comes in and you're like, we gotta get the song done.
Yeah.
And this energy's off. How do we navigate this? You know, that's something that we have to do all the time.
Part of being a therapist.
Yeah.
Have you brought artists together for the first time working together?
I think I have. Yeah. Usher and LMA.
Wow.
Like that was a call I made. We were talking, trying to figure out like who we're gonna put on the song, and they was like LMA, and I was like, oh, let me call her. You know, and I called her, and she came in, and you know.
So you're speaking about. I mean, we touched briefly about being in an arena, being or as the performance is happening amongst the masses, right? Could you share other standout projects or songs that you've worked with artists that you seen it or you wrote it on paper, they wrote it on paper, y'all bounced ideas off, and then...
I mean, I could tell you something, you know, for sure, when I did the Destiny's Child, I did Destiny Fulfilled, the album. I did a song on that album for Kelly. Kelly's own solo song on that album, a song called Bad Habit. And it wasn't even a single, you know, it was an album cut, but I feel like it should have been a single. We all agree it should have been a single, but it was an album cut. And I didn't think she was gonna perform the song. You know, I went to a couple of shows and I was like, well, I don't, you know, the song was album cut, I don't know, you know, they got a bunch of hits, it's their last tour, they probably can do all the hits.
Right.
And I remember going to the show and she was like, oh, we put the song in the set list, you know, we're gonna do songs from the album. I was like, great, so they put the song in the set list. And I didn't know how the crowd was gonna react, because like it's an album cut. And she went out there and started singing this song, and the whole crowd started singing the song. And I was like, damn, it should have been a single. You know what I'm saying? Like, because watching the, I was like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All right. You know, and it made me, that actually made me feel really good, because it was like, I really wanted Kelly to have that moment too. I felt like, you know, it was just, you know, it was just perfect timing.
Felt right.
It felt good. I mean, you know, like I said, watching Usher, watching Chris, watching Trey, you know, when he does Last Time, when Bow Wow does Shorty Like Mine, and like, you know, records like that, Like You, things like that, like watching, it's always just
You know,
a moment.
It's, dare I compare mine, but I only can do this, like with content. And Kristen and I, president, you know, we always have these discussions, and we haven't done it in a while, but for the longest, it was like, oh, this gonna be the one.
Yeah.
Oh, we got it.
Yeah.
And as you drop so much content, you do so much content in the media space or the podcast or the show space, you don't know what's gonna take off.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have singles in this space.
Wow.
But for you, that validation of when it's performed and you like, everybody's singing it, like, man, like, well, for us, well, for me, any pub is good pub. You know what I'm saying? For her, she's like, the person on my right side is like, hey, let's reel this back in. And I'm like, no, like, let's lean in.
Let's lean in.
Hey, you going on, you know, this blog side, you going on that blog side. It's like, yo, like, boom. I got my lady. She's like, no, keep it cute. You know what I'm saying? Keep it cute. I ain't about to keep being a pinata on your behalf, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, it's all about exposure.
Yeah.
You know, people know me by way of football.
Yeah.
And to have Bryan-Michael Cox here, where two worlds collide, but we're in the pursuit of appreciation.
Yeah.
My appreciation looks different than what your appreciation may look like. There's certain times where you feel good about certain things and it's like, ah. And then there's certain times where I feel good about things and it's like, ah. And there's moments in time where you're at the grace of the community.
Yeah.
You know, and what do? It's just like, us pouring so much into the edit, us pouring so much into the thought process, us, you know, me, Alatra, Kristen, pouring so much into ask him this or ask her this, and it don't really hit that way.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the supporter.
Right.
And what do? It's like, you can't say, I want y'all to really fool with this, and they don't. So that whole journey of appreciation is the same. The journey is different, but it's that type of time. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that.
Man, I want to tell you something too. I was telling your team earlier. I was like, what I appreciate about your evolution is like we get to really see your personality. Like you always have personality in the field, and always and and I feel like when you're in a competitive space, you have to be a certain way, or you like you got to show you only show so much, right?
For sure.
But watching what you have been able to do these past few years is really inspiring, brother. Like like this is you created a great platform. You know what I mean? And a trustworthy thing. Like people feel. Like you're gonna get the real when you watch it, and it's natural. You know what I mean? Like, I was giving you props on that, bro.
Thank you. I think it's so important for people to understand that you have to be willing to grow. And growing means delegating and assigning a real team. Like for the longest, I was so the playmaker that, give me the ball, I'll score. Don't worry about it. I'll make the beat. Move. And now it's different because having people in my corner that understands me and know what the vision is, the best thing for me to do sometimes is just to watch out. Like get out the way. And that's the hardest thing for me to do at times. And there comes the trust. There comes the creative brilliance of the Christians, the Latras, and the other IP of 4th and 1 where, everybody knows Peggy now. But there's the editors that do not get the time or the spotlight, right? And so when a person says to me, nah, bro, I love your content, it's 1,000,001 people, 1,000,001 efforts that come to light. And I just, bro, it's chef's kiss every time.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir.
Bro, you've been in the game for so long. What do you think the most significant change in the music industry since you started your career, and how have you adapted?
I think the most significant change in the music business was the iPhone and iTunes and the advent of streaming. I think that that changed everything. It changed, just in general, it changed how we view entertainment. That's when it became content. When you could put videos and things on your phone. When when social media became a thing. I think early iTunes, early YouTube, early social media. I think that was the biggest game changer for creatives, because before that, you had to go to the record store. You'd go to Tower Records, or go to, whatever.
Sam Goody.
Yeah, whatever, FYE or whatever. Virgin Record Mega Store, you had to go to the record store, right? And I could see my money, right? I could see if Usher sold, Usher on Confession, he sold 1.1 million the first week, you could tally.
In real time? Or sooner rather than later?
Yeah, based on like, I know that I'm gonna get this percentage I'm getting these amount of points per song. I'm getting, I'm making this amount of money on the publishing. I got this percentage on the publishing. You could do the math. He sold 1 million copies the first week. Money in the bank.
Yeah.
Do the math. When streaming came, and when the advent of streaming, the advent of social media, and how you get paid, it's still, we're regulating it now. We're trying to get it together now, but it's still very, very much so the Wild Wild West. You know what I mean? It's still very much so like, 0.00 it's like 0.0010 cent per stream. You know what I mean? It's very still much so very underpaid and very much so the Wild Wild West. And you have to, like for example, a gold record, when I was coming up, was 500,000 units. You knew if you sold to 500,000 people, you had a gold plaque. If you sold 1 million copies, you had a platinum plaque. Okay, 1 million people got this in their hand, right?
And Usher did that in the first week?
First week. First week Confessions, 1.1 million the first week, right?
Nutty Professor.
right.
Leave.
So, but now, right, in order to, I just learned this maybe like a couple months ago. I was trying to figure out how do we delegate, how do we get certifications now? You know what I mean? How do we get to a gold record? How do we get to a platinum record? And roughly, the math is this. If a song streams 75 million times, that's a gold record. I think it's 75 million times. 150 million streams is a platinum single. I believe that's the number, but it's like, do you know how big of a record you gotta have to get to 150 million streams? No, how many, like sure. It's, you know, so when you think about a Bruno Mars who had like 1 billion streams, or, you know what I mean? You know, or a record like Not Like Us that's 5 times platinum. That means that they, you know, they had 1 billion, 1.5 billion, you know what I mean, streams. It's like the metrics are so, because really I could cut my phone on and say, I'm gonna stream, I'm gonna put Not Like Us on and put it on repeat and go to sleep. How many times it play?
It's going to a database.
Streams. Yeah. Versus when you had to buy a record, that was it. One and done. That's a sale. Or you buy a single, that's a sale. You go home and you play it 100 times at the crib, that don't count. You just put your tape in and play 100, you know what I mean? You playing it on a device, you put your CD in and put it on repeat.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, every time I play the CD, I'm getting the stream, or I'm getting the, you know, it's like.
I never thought about
the metrics are so
Who comes
different.
up with these different, like, the algorithms?
Man, I have no idea, bro. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm just, you know, like, it's been a learning experience and a learning curve for me for the past, 15 years.
Yeah.
And you can't complain about it because it's literally, my son's 14 years old.
Yeah.
Like, my son don't know nothing about going to no record store.
For sure.
All he know is
the phone
streaming. So it is just what it is.
For sure.
Like, it's no use complaining about it, crying about it.
Yeah.
It just is what it is, because the way that the future, the way that these kids are consuming this music, and not just kids, like anybody who was born in 2000, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or 2001, they only 24, 25 right now.
And there will never know certain, like, to this point, right? And help me understand, how did this happen, right? We're gonna talk about Drake and just that situation, but there used to be a thing that a leaked album. How did that happen? Like when they would always say, and I haven't heard this in years, man, the whole album leaked.
Well, because now it's all positive. If something leaks, if it's on the internet, it's getting streams. So really, people be, leaking their own album now because
it goes to the album.
It goes to the algorithm. So the reason why leaks were dangerous back in the day is because there was no way to
track it.
Track it.
Performance.
So if, for example, working on Trey's album Ready, right? So this is I think it's his 3rd album. And I was supposed to executive produce the album. So I did a gang of songs. Like, we did maybe 13, 14 songs, right? And this is in the beginning when people are just now starting to email records to the label.
Okay.
We do a song, email it to the A&R. Like this is the beginning of that, right? So what happens was hackers realized, you guys are sending unreleased music to A&Rs and to executives via email. We're gonna hack your email. Hack your email, take the songs, post it. Leak. So then once the song gets leaked, back then, it's no good. It's like we can't put it out now because it's leaked. Now the leak helps. They want you to leak it now. But back then it was like, I went from having 13 songs on Trey's record to having 1 because every song got leaked. I had to do it with Keisha Cole that got leaked. I mean, all the songs got leaked. So it was like the one song I didn't send,
right.
You know what I'm saying, via email, didn't get leaked.
Yeah.
And that was the song that stayed on the album. But now it's different. Like, I feel like labels encourage leaks now because they can track it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So even to the point of like Drake, right? You spoke about Night Like Us. Could you break down for what you know or the education of just this feud with UMG versus Drake lawsuit and stream overplays that Drake is claiming?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting to me because Drake is the biggest artist in the world, right? Even still, you know, in real life. Like numbers wise, you know,
he's
Kendrick's had a great run, and Kendrick's going to be great. Kendrick is great. He's going to continue to do well. But from a numbers perspective, you know, Drake's the biggest artist, you know, in the business. You know what I mean, right now, and he just reached a milestone the other day. If you like, it's 500 billion streams or something total or something like that he's reached as an artist for the whole time he's been out. I think that it's a little bit of, if you're going to expose, you know, I think it's like you're cutting up your nose to spite your face, right? Suing Universal, because it's like now what's going to happen is, okay, cool, they're going to look into that, but now we got to look into you because you said, because last year, because you mad about this, on every platform, you were the #1 artist. So that means that if they're doing it for Kendrick, they are most definitely doing it for you.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Bro,
that's the thing. It's like, you know, you can't have one without the other. It's like, it's really an even thing. It's like, okay.
That's the game.
It's the game.
You know what I'm saying?
So,
okay.
What I don't like about it sets a wild precedent. What I don't like about it is, all right, Drake, this was a war of words, right? You claim that the boy best friend is really the father of his children. You know, you claim that the boy's fiance and the best friend having an affair and that the kids ain't yours. And like you said a lot of false things too. It just didn't stick. Do you see what I'm saying? So let's talk about a old beef, right? Let's talk about Jay-Z and Nas, right? If you were alive or if you remember how that was going. Right. It got nasty.
Yeah.
It got, you know, I mean, but I'm saying, but it was Ether and then Super Ugly.
Yeah.
And it got nasty. Super Ugly got like, Jay-Z
there was a fist fight.
They were going below the belt. You know what I'm saying? But it was hip hop. Mm-hmm. You know? It was hip hop. Jay acknowledged that Nas got the best of him, went on Angie Martinez and apologized. Like, I went too low, I went below the belt, talking about kids and this, that, and the third. You know, my mama called me and was like, enough is enough. You went too low. And then Jay, you know, took a vacation and then came back. Big, you know, did their summer freestyle, and nobody even really talks about that beef like that. I mean, nobody even, you know, I mean, I
don't think a lot of people know the totality of the beef. Yeah, yeah. But what that beef had similar to a lot of beefs is the defamation.
Yeah.
I
mean, they were going crazy.
It was happening.
You know what I'm saying?
But it's like now when you talk about this particular situation and you bring up a point where it's like, okay, Drake, you've been playing this game for so long. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the first person that probably has gotten everybody's attention with the potential of, has he really exposed the giant, right? Because you see Drake with Meek Mill, right? And nobody speaks about the Meek.
And Drake went below the belt, won a Grammy, number one single, #1 record. I think that might have been the first like real diss record that went #1. Mm-hmm. Like a pop, you know what I mean? Big record. Either he was nominated for a Grammy or he won a Grammy.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you know, Meek didn't go and say defamation of character.
Yeah, he took that one on the chin.
He took it on the chin.
But the thing too, Meek and Drake ended up working
together. They worked it out.
Yeah.
And they worked it out and did a bunch of things after.
And you can't say that too because so did Jay-Z and Nas.
Exactly.
Right? But Pusha and Drake, it's very, very different though.
That's something
Explain.
that stems from way back. It stems even before Drake. Like that's something that, from my understanding, Pusha T had an issue with Birdman. And so that is something that stems from Birdman, Wayne, and it's just a little more. It's a way more kind of like Drake jumped into something that he really didn't quite know everything about. So that's why Pusha. From what I understand, I don't know. Yeah. From what you read and what you hear, you know what I mean?
But if we're having this conversation, like just shooting the breeze, I feel like Pusha won that.
He did.
But I don't think Pusha was bigger of an artist to really egg or to really take that crown. Because why? Pusha doesn't have the resume that a Drake does. Or
even a Kendrick.
He exposed him to having a child. Before then it was hold on, wait.
Put it out there.
And now you have to
acknowledge it. But let me tell you something about Drake, right? I think people were quick to count him out. I think people were trying to, when Kendrick came with the massive joints back to back to back, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is crazy." And Now Like Us comes and it's
huge.
Just crazy. Watching what's happening now, right? What did Drake do? Drake said, okay, he was trying to, he's doing the lawsuit, whatever, but then when he went back to make music, what did he do? He went back and he made music directly for his fan base. So now, Nokia, Give Me a Hug, all these songs are like classic sounding Drake songs, and Nokia is like killing the clubs right now. It's killing everywhere. It's going to be the song of the summer. So just like that, the seesaw. It's because
he's extremely intentional and very crafty with his methodology of coming out with projects.
If you take the lawsuit away from this situation, people would be praising him right now. The reason why people have an issue with him because they're like, "Yo, what's up with this lawsuit?" You know what I mean? This makes no sense. You just take the L like a man, right? But musically, I don't know why people was counting him out. It's like that guy he's one of the best.
No, for sure. But I would say Drake has been a part of something that he doesn't get a lot of credit for of his affiliation, right? There's not a lot of times in music that we are waiting on responses.
Yeah.
I remember when Meek Mill and Drake was beefing, and that's when Back to Back came. Like, oh man, wait, like it was, he come out with a record, he come out with a single, then he responds. That person comes out with a single, then they respond. Bro, the whole internet.
They put out like 10 records. They put out like 9 records.
Bro.
Like, they did something
it's never happened. That's genius in itself. It's like, yo, we are creating a moment in time that will it ever get to, like it's a lot of things that you got to take into mind. Will the giant artists beef with each other? This is only a hip hop thing. You don't see this in country. You don't see this in gospel. You don't see.
I mean, not on record, no.
You know what I'm saying? You don't see people responding through their art to defame another person, and it was days. Some records came out on the same day.
No, for real. Like literally, Phantom Matters came out,
and then
the same day.
It's like, yo, I got a one up, and there was the artistry of that.
Yeah.
Because
it was beautiful competition.
Oh my goodness.
Beautiful competition.
But hip hop, R&B, culturally, we have this, it only could be one of us mentality.
I don't know why though, because it's like,
It's just a competition of music, right? And I remember, Drake had this campaign or something that it only could be one of us. Like it was in Times Square. And no matter what you believe about an individual, being a part of certain things, going back to, me and, Kristen's, banter, any pub is good pub. You feel what I'm saying? To that dynamic is like, yo, Do you think he's changed? Do I look at Drake's music a little different now? Yes. As a fan of music, I genuinely do.
Okay.
Why? It's because he knows that the gasoline that's been thrown on a fire was fabrication. It was AI generated, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And it's like, hold on, like y'all looking at me on something that's being pumped with an engine, but to your point, it's like, yo, you can't get mad. Like you was a part of the gasoline thrown on other situations.
If you are saying that we did this for this guy, they're gonna peel back.
You have to.
We have the same system.
Yes.
It's the same exact system.
You've benefited off this
it's the
system.
same exact system.
Yeah.
I think ultimately too, like I said, just, him getting back to doing like getting off of it and saying, yo, let me just make records. I just wish the lawsuit part wasn't a part of it. It's like, yo, our giants of hip hop. You know what I mean? All the way back to KRS One versus MC Shan. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, everything KRS One said on that record wasn't like truth.
Yeah.
I mean, MC Shan tried to diss him back. It's rap. You know what I mean?
That's the art.
It's rap.
Yeah.
But I think that once you start talking about people's wives having affairs with best friends and, kids ain't really yours, I just trying to figure out what did Drake think he was gonna do? Like, what did he, like you start talking about somebody's family when he didn't do that in the beginning.
Yeah.
What did you think he was gonna do? Like, at that point, Meet the Grams is coming.
Yeah.
At that point, now the glove's off. Okay, now.
What was it? Euphoria.
Yeah, Euphoria.
Was one of them. Like
Yeah.
it was 3 songs in one, and I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
I'm working out to this.
Yeah, so now it's like the gloves are off, and then when the gloves are off, now everybody's gloves are off.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you just.
But isn't that good for music though? We're at that space.
I mean, maybe. I mean, culturally, it concerns me because you have the same thing. I think you have a lot of people who take it very seriously. Who don't know these guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Friends of the friends that people are talking about in the songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like you just
now
said,
got a
Jay
problem
and John,
with.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, when we go to LA, what is that gonna look like? As OVO crew. When we go to Toronto, now what is that gonna look like? With PG Lang. Like it's like you have to be. Now we're on guard because everybody done threw mud and said the wildest things you could ever say about somebody. Yeah. And this guy just had a better record with the wild things on it. You said wild things too. Yeah. But this guy just had a better record. It penetrated better. And now everybody's in their feelings,
This is the comparable because when I think about what this stems from, it's given mama jokes. Like, there's a joke. Like, we're joking, but there's a line. And then there goes to the mama jokes. Mm-hmm. When we start talking about mama jokes...
I'm talking about my mama now.
You see what I'm saying? Like, nah, bro. Okay, you talked about my mama. Let's talk about yo.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in a way that, is this true?
Yeah.
Oh, it's stuck. The punchline was just so devastating. So you've been talking about Feuds, right? You've been a part of Feuds yourself. And what I didn't know, there was a lawsuit filed for Usher, right?
Lord, yeah.
How help me. But you worked afterwards, right? I think this is important to discuss.
Well, it wasn't a lawsuit, it was a claim, right?
Okay.
And I don't really want to go into that because we don't really talk about it. It got, Mariah helped us, realize some things and we don't really talk about it. It was just, I think that when you have people up top.
Yes. But this is my...
talking to each other and,
This is the reason why I wanted to ask this question is because as men, right, there's an alpha-ism there. Mm-hmm. No human wants to be taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And certain things are cured by discussion, and certain things are just cured by just time.
Yeah.
Right? How are you guys able to come back on that frequency to say, you know what, bro?
Well, two things I think, right? I think the first thing is I just kept working. So I think that ultimately what happens is if you keep working and you have things going on outside of it, it's like, okay, well, you know, Brian's still doing all right. He's still making hits on his own. Because people will tell you, oh, he's using you. People try to pitch you against each other like, oh, they using, you know, he's using your name, he using your brand, you know, and then somebody will be like, he using your talent. And, you know, and it be other people talking that creates whatever dissension is in there. It's not us. You know what I'm saying? It's the publisher that is saying, well, you know, I mean, you put him on. And then it's this publisher saying, well, you know, I mean, you doing all the melodies, you the one, you know what I mean? I don't listen to I'm like, yo, y'all, I know what this man done for me. So I'm not ever going against him. You know what I'm saying? But you don't know what somebody's going through in the moment of when one star is kind of rising and you feel like you might be responsible for that and you're not getting the proper credit for the star being risen. Like, you don't know what's going on, you know what I'm saying? So I think the first thing for me was like, I just kept working. And another thing too, Cam,
yes,
is that you hear a lot of stories back in the day where people will have conflict, right? And that person will go straight to Billboard and try to bash that person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How many times you heard people say, oh, Puff ain't really produced, I produced it.
Yeah.
How many times you heard people say, you know, I'm the one that's that, you know, whatever, right? That's not even who I am. I understand. First of all, I'm never gonna lie about my involvement on anything, right? I'm always gonna give credit where credit is due. And most importantly, if we have a disagreement, that don't mean we're not friends no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that don't mean that I would never demean or put down or say something wild about somebody that I have an affinity for, somebody who I care about. I know their family, I know their kids, I know, I would never publicly denounce that person. So if somebody might have been waiting for the moment, you know what I mean, for me to, you know, say something negative, I'm like, this is just a misunderstanding.
Right.
And we'll be all right. And I always knew that. So that's the first thing, you know, you go in it knowing this is my friend no matter what.
Yeah.
We not talking right now, okay, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? That thing lasted maybe 5 months maybe. Do you know what I'm saying? It's okay, you know, but in that time period, you know, no one's gonna stop my work. I didn't let it affect me emotionally. I just knew eventually you're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is time. So when it came back around and I got the call and we just, you know, we got back in the room and it was just like, nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And we've been, you know, the greatest ever since.
Yeah. I think that, bro, I'm a lover. You feel what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not a phony in regards to having my differences with particular individuals. But what I do know is, as a man, the simplest thing to do is probably the hardest thing. And that's just hey, bro, I didn't appreciate how you did certain things. I didn't appreciate what you said. And then what you may find out about that is, bro, I never said that. Hey, I never did that.
That's nothing, too. That's nothing. You know, you go down a rabbit hole and you realize that somebody told him I said something that I never said, and he never told me that, hey, I heard you said this, and now you got something festering. You know what I mean? Like, we went down a rabbit hole and found out that it was really just nothing.
She say, yeah.
It was absolutely nothing.
For sure.
You know? So I agree with that.
I'm glad that you guys were able to reconcile your differences.
Yeah.
But in this industry of competition, especially in music, being a producer is the person that can be, along with other people, can be the forgotten person, right? How do you earn songwriter royalties for the work that you've done with artists?
Well, because, I mean, I co-write when I produce. Most songs that either co-produce or produce, whether I'm working with Jermaine, whether I'm working with, we create the actual music too. So that's a part of our songwriting. It's not like, it's not like somebody's giving me a song. Like if Diane Warren, who's a songwriter, gave me a song to produce, then that's a different thing. Those royalties are hers, you know what I mean?
Correct.
But if I'm sitting at a piano, I'm sitting at a keyboard, and Jermaine's sitting next to me at a drum machine, and we're coming up with music, we're writing at that point too. So that's how the songwriting thing. And then also we do write also.
Yeah.
So we'll write lyrics, we do that too. But in songwriting royalties, there's a music side and lyric side. And or they would call a composer. Composer's the music, lyrics is the words.
Now, in this kind of sector, it's about the business of music, right? For the educational piece, what percentage of songwriting royalties do producers typically receive for their contribution to a song or an album?
So if you're a producer who also composes, usually the music part is 50% and the lyric part is 50%.
Okay.
So you bust that down, however you want to bust it down. But as I've gotten older, because it used to be like we had like this mathematical thing, like if me and you do a track together, we automatically split it. Or if maybe me, you, and somebody else do a track, we'll, like
33 and a third.
or whatever it is, right? And then on the lyric side, if somebody wrote a hook, that's 25%. They wrote a verse, it's 10. It's, you know what I mean? But what I've come to learn or come to do in recent years, especially in the past, maybe I would say 9 or 10 years, it's just like if we're in a room together and we all contributed significantly, let's just split this thing evenly, man.
Yeah.
Split it even. Like that's what it do in Nashville, in country music.
Yeah.
You could be in a room. If you're in a room and you throwing out ideas and maybe none of the ideas stick, but if you was in the room and the song gets finished, they split it 3 ways, no question. It's like, or they split it evenly, no question. It's like, all right, you was in the room, you might only gave us 2 words, but you're gonna get equal share.
So when you hear, this is more with artists, blase blah for a feature, is that a real thing?
Like money-wise?
Yeah, you can't book me, not a show, but some people, they've said these numbers in songs. It's like, yo, I can't do a feature without it being blase, blase, blah.
Some of that is, a little over-exaggerated, you know what I mean? Some of it's real, and that's why certain artists, I might say that, and you don't see them, featured on nothing, you know what I mean? Then you have artists like Lil Wayne, who, when we mixtape Wayne, he was going on everybody's record, and he had a run that was crazy.
Yeah.
And stamped, you know what I mean? So he was like, well, I don't really, he could have charged him crazy, money for features, but he's on like a Lloyd record and Bobby V, and he's doing everybody's records for some of these bottom joints for the love, just like, and it put him in the marketplace, and he saturated the market in such a way where he became this huge thing. T-Pain, same thing. T-Pain was like, man, he was doing everything. I think that if you're trying to be a star, I think that you kind of, you box yourself out when you be like, yeah, I need so for a feature. Like if you just kind of hot, or you may got a hot, couple singles, and you're like, well, I need like 60,000. Like, oh, nah, bro. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You might want to get on as many songs as you want to get on so you can saturate the market.
I mean, it's multiple things that you're talking about. We just talked about this on recently on my sports show, 4th and 1. It's like, Lil Wayne just went or was recently at a college, University of North Carolina. Bill Belichick brought him in. And I asked Peggy, I'm like, bro, do these kids really know who Lil Wayne is? Because even though we just talked about Drake's dominance, talked about Kendrick's brilliance, we've talked about, so many different artists, but the thing that made Lil Wayne kind of different is that whether he or these people signed off on it, he was jumping on songs and was, you played the No Ceilings or the Dedication song.
One of the hardest working people in the music business, if not the hardest working rapper, for sure. You know what I'm saying? And the 2 biggest artists that we named, 2 biggest hip hop artists we named, Drake and Kendrick.
They come from the cloth.
I mean, he's Kendrick Lamar's favorite rapper. You know what I'm saying? Drake Drake is a product of, from that soil. You know what I mean? He discovered Drake, put Drake out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't get them without him. That says so much about Wayne's influence. Like, the two biggest that we talking about right now. You know what I'm saying? You don't get them without Lil Wayne.
Bro, it's so many Lil Wayne infused music, creativity, sound,
Yeah, I mean,
look.
you can go,
Bro.
You can go Thug, you can go Future, you can go. I mean, everybody's influenced by Lil Wayne.
No, for sure.
Everybody.
So when I say the best rapper alive, it's like, yo, it's not just with the music element. It is the music element, but not alone. It's like the impact
Influence.
of the... Lord, real quick. So as a producer, right, nowadays, there's this virality of song making. Do you ever have this idea that you want to go, like we were talking about this and saying it, like it used to be the single, the club banger, the ringtone, right? Now it's the TikTok, the viral,
the viral moment going viral,
the viral dance or the nobody like it's these things that does that impact your creation as you make?
Not really. I'm gonna keep it real. Even with the Money Long record, the Made For Me record, like we weren't like. I mean, I would say maybe from a beat perspective, we might have been like, we saw like this Mariah Carey challenge that they were doing, like, and I can't remember what song, I think it was Shake It Off. I can't remember what challenge it was. But it was like, Made For Me was already a song. Like, we didn't make Made For Me, like, okay, we're gonna write this song for TikTok.
Yeah.
It was like, whatever naturally came from Money Long at that point, that's what came out. So, I don't think that we intentionally do it. I think that what happens is you write things that resonate with people, and we always writing these topics. Like, Confessions is, if Confessions came out today, it would be a hashtag.
It's relatable.
You know what I mean? Sure. It's literally just topics. You know what I mean? Like we look at the world and we have discussions, and like I said, in these conversations, topics happen. You know what I'm saying? So, anything could be a hashtag. Anything could be a TikTok at that point when it comes to how we discuss topics. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm with it. So let's get into our question of the day, right? Our question of the day is a typical question, off topic, that provokes thought, discussion, that the viewer can see as well as, you will have to answer. But it's more than just a one-word answer.
Okay.
Right? So, question of the day is, what brands or companies are you most loyal to?
What brands or companies that I'm most loyal to?
A brand, something that you...
So, automatically, I could tell you Nike and Brand Jordan. Like, you go over my closet, there's really all Jordans, like in real life. You know what I mean? And Nikes too, but really it's all Jordan, really. Like I have so many pairs of Jordans, it's really ridiculous. There's a brand that I love in LA called Kith and Kin.
No, I love Kith. What's Michael Key? Is it?
No, you're talking about Ronnie. Ronnie
Feed.
Ronnie Feed.
Ronnie Feed, yes.
Like Kith and Kin is one of my, literally one of my favorite brands. I would say from Apple, Apple computers, Apple phones, Apple everything. Apple everything. From a musician perspective, there's a company called Roland that makes keyboards. I've been using Roland keyboards since the beginning of my career. There's a company called Akai that makes the MPC. I've been using MPC since the beginning of my career.
I got a confession to make.
No.
This is my confession. Bro, I used to always say, any man over the age of 30 years old, and you go out your way to buy Jordans, I think that's childish. But hear me out.
Okay.
It's how you wear Jordans. is, are you standing in the line for the Jordans?
Definitely not doing that.
But you see them.
Yeah, I'm definitely not doing that.
I was talking, like, bro, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Peggy, my partner. And I'm like, I see him. We have this knack for fashion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we have this unspoken, like, I'm judging him, he's judging me. Like, you step, I'm a stomp.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You jump, I'm a lunge.
Yeah.
It's that. And I'm like, bro, anybody that's over 30 and you wear Jordans, like, that's childish. He's like, nah, bro, but it's how you wear them.
It's how, and it's which Jordans you're buying.
Talk to me nice. Like,
Aight.
Because you're talking to a person, the first time I ever bought a pair of Jordans, check this out. I was at the Auburn University. I never had the opportunity to spend my money on Jordans. Now, Air Force Ones, that was just a staple in Atlanta. That's different.
Of course.
But I couldn't tell you
how many pair of Air Force Ones I've had.
No, for sure. But for me, I was an adult, and when I bought my first pair of Jordans, it was just like, okay. And then months after that, right, at Auburn, I signed a deal with Under Armour. Now all the shoes that I've accumulated, it had to be about 10 pair. In that short span, I had to give them away.
Okay. Boy.
And then the flex is, he ended up being my next door neighbor.
Crazy.
Right? So I'm like, yo.
What a flex,
like,
yo.
Come on.
That's it.
And then it's like, yo, I meet his son, I meet his family, and then they're like, yo, bro, you want to wear? I said, I can't wear these, you know, contractually.
Yeah.
But it's, explain to me, it's which ones you wear.
Yeah, it's how, and it's how, it's the ones, like, what do you wear? Do you wear, do you have the, like I said, I have my Air 4s on right now. I mean, 3s on right now. Like, this is different. This ain't like you don't go to Foot Locker and get
great condition too, buddy.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
you know,
nuts. That's
you don't,
like no
you
wrinkles.
get the brick by brick 4s. Like, though that's not, that's the Nigel Sylvester joints. You don't, it's which ones do you get? It's like I'm not going and just going to Nike Town and getting, the general releases. It's like, you collect what's the, you get the original cements. You get the...
What's that?
The original cement 4s, the gray and the white with the gray, stripe and the Nike Air on the back. You don't want the Jordans with the Jumpman on the back. You want the Jordans with the Nike Air on the back. You know what I'm saying? That's me. I don't want the Jordans with the Nike.
Hey, bro.
Cause the Jumpman right there. What? I don't want a Jumpman on the back. I want Nike Air on the back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm from, I grew up wearing Jordans. It was the 80s and the 90s. There was Nike Air on the back. I want to see that.
From this point forward, I'm letting everybody know, if you got 2 Jumpman logos on your shoe, I'm checking.
No, there's a total of 4, really, because you got Jumpman on the
one that I can
and
see.
Jumpman's on the back. If you have 4 Jumpman logos on your shoe,
it's a no-go.
Way. No way.
So shout out to Drake when he said Jumpman, or Future. Like, no. You gotta have.
Yeah, you gotta have just on the tongues, or if you get if you got ones, like you don't want no Jumpman on the ones. On the Jordan ones is the wing logo on the side. You don't want the Jumpman on the ones. The Jumpman on the back of the ones is nasty. No.
Those are the team.
You don't want to wear
Jordans.
mids. You don't want like mid ones. No. Only highs. You want to get the Chicagos. You might want to get the Lost and Founds. You might want to get, there's a few ones you might want to get.
Oh, you really entrenched with this?
Yeah, I'm a Jordan fanatic when it comes to that kind of shit.
Is there ever a Jordan shoe that you couldn't wear for a specific time? Could you tuxedo a Jordan?
I don't do that.
Could you business casual a Jordan?
I've done it in the past, but I don't do that anymore neither.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like I'm gonna take this time, and if you find yourself ever in Atlanta, Georgia, please bring your assets and your friends to fellowshipatl.com, where it is a premium restaurant and cigar lounge. Now, if I see you in Fellowship, first off, you're not getting in, depending on.
Yeah, because you gotta have it's dress code. Yeah.
But it's you have to cite the source in regards to that, because I'm like, yo, bro, you grown, and you're wearing.
I wouldn't. That's a no.
Okay.
Like a tuxedo, a suit.
Now, I've seen it in a fly way.
Yeah. For me, it's a no. I'm just, disrespect.
I've seen it in a fly way. I was like, okay, I'll do that. Now we have a lot of things that's coming up. You got Preakness, you got the Seersucker, you got... Fashion is not a ingredient that has rules to it. So dare I say, you can or cannot
Yeah, you do what you want to do.
Do what you want to do, but it's like, bro, if you're pressing the issue and just thinking that, and I say this with Jordans and high fashion pieces of clothing or fashion. With that being said, it's like when you have these different excuses, right? And you say, but I got these J's though.
Yeah.
But these Balenciagas, these Pradas, these Hermes,
the brand.
It's like, I don't care what you're wearing, bro. You cannot have a get out of jail free card because you're looking goofy by going over and beyond by stressing the facts.
Yes, sir.
You said, what's a no-no? You would never wear Jordans with what, though?
Tuxedo, a suit.
I need the thing.
No Jordans with a tuxedo, no Jordans with a suit.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My fault. Shout out to my dog, MCM. So, what's that?
Damn. It be your own people, boy, I swear to you.
It be your own.
You be your own fucking people, man.
I did the same thing, though.
Yeah. Be your own fucking people, man. Yeah, you know what?
That's swaggy though,
but let
bro.
me tell you what happened. I know what happened. I forgot to pack my fucking shoes. That's what happened.
Bro, that's a loaded picture right there, though.
Cause you got the fucking shorts, Jermaine with the Louis Vuitton shorts on.
Yeah.
The socks.
But that's swaggy though.
Yeah, it's cool.
But I will sign off on this.
Yeah, it's cool.
You feel devastated.
I am devastated. Cause I forgot about that. And that was recent too. That's fucked up.
But I give you a pass with this one. Cause it looks effortless.
Yeah.
Now, going out of your way, like you would never have a time where you would wear this and somebody would have to explain, just this nature of fashion. Nobody would have to explain like, but these Jordans though, this is not what I'm talking about.
I would never do that anyway, by the way. I would never be like, I got my J's on. I probably whip out. I felt like, you know what, man, fuck, I forgot my shoes. Damn, let me just put them on. And my thing is too, it's really how you know,
yeah,
it's how you roll too, you know what I'm saying?
I could dig it. Jermaine with the socks.
Oh no, he leaning in all the way on that, bro. Yeah, leaning all the way in on that, Jack.
I'm sorry, bro.
I'm not mad at it.
At Funky Friday, we just got to keep it funky. Hold everybody accountable.
I'm not mad at it though. Like it became his thing. You know, he leans in on it. I'm talking. He like still leans in on it. He
with the socks.
He with the socks.
Like my little daughter's socks, but it's groovy though. But I ain't mad. Look, and I've been the dude that's been wearing a lot of, because a lot of people be like, bro, Cam, watch what you say, because, bro, you have wore some things that's like, bruh, what is that?
Yo.
It's not even, what are those? It's what is that? And I felt confident, bro.
But you know what, though?
Out.
I would say this, though, Cam. You really have a air of, like, confidence that is, like, really, like, unmatched, bro.
You know what my
like,
fear
for real. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you know what my fear is, though, bro?
What?
Even to this, like, I would hate to go places and somebody got on the same shoes that I have. Like, that's a real, not a fear, I just don't like that.
You don't like it?
I say this all the time, or give this an example. Bro, I was driving in Atlanta and somebody was driving in the same car that I had. I never drove that car.
Really?
A Lamborghini Urus.
And you was like, I'm done.
I said, I'm not driving. I'm said, Matt Black, baby, Batmobile, I love you, but this is my last time I'm gonna be riding with you for some time.
Was it like the same exact? It was Matt Black.
It looked like it was.
I mean, it wasn't the same exact. I know you probably did.
No. They didn't have no customizations.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know if it was a rental. I don't care if it was a rental. When that person got out that car and I knew what I paid for mine, and I knew, I'm like, oh,
no, I'm good.
I'm good. And I'm sorry. I'll drive you eventually, but it's just
right now.
Yo,
we're putting
you
on
on ice.
Pause.
You on ice. And if you look at the sticker, you be like, bro, you ain't got this car registered in that many. It's like, bro, I got it when you could not lease it. Like you had to buy it.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people are like the Cybertrucks. Like the early cyber trucks, you could not lease it. You could not. You had to buy it. It was a waiting list.
Yeah.
So now you don't know who had theirs. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's the individuality of it all.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, yo, like...
It's the culture. It's like, I was the first one, too, and then when everybody has it, you wouldn't know who the first one is.
Yeah, I remember when those Bentley Continental Flying Spurs came out, and I was like, there was none in Atlanta. I bought mine in LA, and I remember shipping out here, and I was like one of the first cats out here in Atlanta with a Flying Spur. And I remember how that felt, like being able to pull up, and everybody's like,
what is that?
What's that? What kind of car is that? You know what I mean? I know what that feels like, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Man, let's get into our game. You've been in the game for decades. We call this game Memory Lane Mashup.
Okay.
I'm going to say a word or a group of words, and you will name the first song that comes to mind that you was a part of.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Which song does these words remind you of? You ready? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a flex for you, too. Here we go. First word, wedding ring.
Let's get married.
That was easy. Cheating in a relationship.
Well, it could be a couple of them, but confessions.
Love letters.
Love letters. Be Without You.
Drinks, good vibes, good music.
Don't Waste My Time, Usher.
I like where you at right now. Big bag. Until the Wheels Fall Off.
Till the Wheels Fall Off. Let me think. Damn. Would it be...
There's no specific reason.
Yeah.
It's just what speaks
Yeah,
to you.
just Till the Wheels Fall Off. There's a record I did with... damn, why am I drawing a blank? I'm drawing a blank right now. Till the Wheels Fall Off. What is the song? Be Without You would be that, but I said that already. Till the Wheels Fall Off. I don't know, man. Let's go to the next one.
Going to the next. At the family reunion.
At the family reunion, Don't Mess With My Man by Nivea and Jagged.
First love.
First love would be, let me think. Winner by Chris Brown.
Heartbreak.
Heartbreak by Jagged Edge.
Unity.
Unity. Oh no, I didn't do that one. Damn. I don't know. Unity. Let's go to the next one.
Playing games in a relationship.
Playing games, relationship, shit.
Bro, I can see a hamster at the
there's so
top
many-
of your
so many-
hat. And it's...
So many.
I mean, you go...
You got a bad? You got a bad, maybe? Could that back and forth, that hang up, call right back?
The hang up and call right back is so childish. You know what? Don't even worry. Do, 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 do. And another thing, let me tell you something about yourself. That right there, bro.
We've all done it.
We've all done it.
We've all done it. Yeah. We've all done it.
Bro, I didn't get an opportunity to speak about this, but my first break, like a heartbreak for me, bro, I was in high school, right? And I remember falling asleep on the phone with a girl. And I wake up and I'm like, you still there? And she's like, yeah, I'm still here. And I was like, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Verbatim, right? Tomorrow happens. We have track practice. That same girl I seen kissing another dude.
Yeah, it happens, man. Like I said, you know, those moments are moments that you don't even realize how that would affect, you know, how you know. Like I said, I'm thankful that, you know, I didn't allow moments like that define how I viewed love. But for the majority of people, a moment like that can
Bro, that
actually be
happened when
like...
I was 15 or 16 years old.
And people be like, oh, get over it. Like I've heard, you know,
Yeah.
you hear the conversations like, you was a... But I'm like, y'all have no idea. Like, you know, those moments literally...
Plays in your mind
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I know people who are ruined because of a 17-year-old love, you know, a 11th grade love or freshman year in college.
Bro, Kendrick Lamar has this song, or lyric that says, "We all grieve different." Mm-hmm. And what you may eat may not make me use.
Yeah.
Like, you are heard in different connotations. And it's like, bro, what you may go through, somebody may just brush it off. Mm-hmm. But when something really happened to you, that's your thing that you care about. Here we go, man.
Yes.
Last thing for us, we have questions from the crew, right? Our crew this is a more inclusive effort where anybody can ask myself a question or ask you a question. Okay. Do we have any questions from the crew?
Yes, Brian, this question is for you.
Okay.
Are there any up-and-coming artists that you're excited about, and why do you feel like they're going to be successful?
Yes, so I have an artist named Jack Freeman that I'm working with from Houston. He's on tour with Jagged Edge right now. We have a single called MVP that's coming out. I think that he's just a young, soulful, really, really dope talent. I've always wanted to work with, I've continuously tried to work with artists from the crib, try to bring artists from Houston on. I've continued to try to do over the years, but I think this particular situation is a proper one. So I'm excited about him. I'm working with a gang of new artists. So like Aaron Ray, artist named J Don, Jermaine has a new artist named Dan that we're working on. Like I literally in the space. It's artist named Scenario. Like I'm in a space where I'm working with young talent and I'm telling all the labels like, hey, I want to work with the young artists. You know what I mean? And get in that bag because I feel like it's, I feel like I can learn from them like what their thing is and I can show them how to, get their ideas all the way to the finish line, the way that they, people admire these records we make and it's like you try to emulate them. But we still alive. We can still make them. Yeah. So, but I think that where we go wrong as vets is sometimes we don't embrace the youth. We'll say, they're doing that. That ain't, and instead of saying, oh yo, here's an olive branch. I want to know what you guys know, and I want to show you what we know. Maybe we come together and we make something special.
To that point, what is the common denominator in that type of relationship, though? Like relationship of what can't you work with? Let's just put it that way.
There's not much that I can't work with.
It's like
right?
What? And this is not face. Yeah. Skin, like what can you not work with if they don't have?
There has to be a basic sense of talent, a basic sense of knowing who you are.
Okay.
Right? I think the main thing about artists, sometimes artists don't know who they are, where they're going. I think the best artists that we've had are artists that have been very clear about who they are, where they're going. I think that you take artists like Drake, take artists like Kendrick Lamar, they were very clear on who they were from the very beginning. I think you take an artist like Arvin Lennox, she's very clear. Yeah. You take artists like Summer Walker, from the very beginning, I think she knows who she is. You know what I mean? Even as you evolve, because you always evolve, you change. But I think that a lot of times, if you know where you're going, you know who you are, that to me, that makes my job easier to help you get to the finish line.
Could you work with somebody who's not as of a worker? Like, can you teach that? Like, you
can't teach that.
Right?
You got to be passionate about it. I know people who are naturally talented, right? And probably feel like they should be, popping. But if, hard work beats talent, in a lot of cases in this business. You might find an artist that may not be as talented, but they're gonna work at it. They be at rehearsal, they're gonna write every day, they're gonna get vocal coach, they're gonna, I know a lot of artists that y'all may think are naturally gifted, but they really willed it. You know what I'm saying? And became good. So, like, you take a person like Kobe Bryant, right? Kobe Bryant's talented, naturally talented. He jump out the gym, but how hard he worked.
Yo, bro, I'm there. I'm such a Kobe fan. Me and my girl watching this documentary of Kobe, kind of sad, but
Yeah.
just to see his dynamic of what, he was a loner.
Yeah.
Right? And the last of a dying breed of athletes coming straight from high school to there. And he leaned in and accepted that I'm not trying to be liked by a lot of people. I'm gonna be liked by this gym though.
Yep.
And that's
and I'm gonna be revered, be the best. You could be revered. Most people who are revered in that way, a lot of people didn't like him.
Yeah.
We talk about Michael Jordan. Same thing. Like a lot of people didn't like Michael Jordan. Yeah. But just the will to win and the will to I'm gonna go work. Oh, I got beat down by the Pistons this year. Let's go to the gym. Let's put some weight on. Let's go. Like we ain't taking there's no breaks. We ain't chilling. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that and that's why I work so hard. Like it's like I could have easily been leaning on the fact that I'm talented and people thought I was gifted and this, that, and the third. But bro, how we gonna keep it?
Yeah.
I could get there by chance, being talented, right? But once I get there, how we gonna stay there?
Yeah.
Because there's a guy behind me who's coming up who want to have a #1 record too, who want to win a Grammy too, who's working every day, who's in the lab, chopping samples in the lab, learning how to play piano in the lab, learning how to use all the programs to make the best shit. Or he might be on his iPad trying to do all the best shit. Because now the playing field is, you can make a hit record on that. So now the playing field is, who's gonna work the hardest? That's the key.
Well, the time has come, ladies and gentlemen, where we end things here, unfortunately. That Funky Friday, right? So when I say all together, we're gonna say one love. When I say all together, we're gonna say one love. When I say all together, we're gonna say what?
One love.
All right, so we're gonna go in unison and I'm gonna give you an example. We're gonna start with this camera, then we're gonna go to that camera, and then we're gonna finish with that camera. We're gonna start with one finger, then we're gonna go to this camera and one pinky, and then we're gonna go to that camera, one thumb, and then when I say all together, we're gonna say what?
One love.
All right, so you've been in the world of...
This camera, right?
There you go,
Okay,
there you go.
Make it show.
Yeah, I'm about to drink my Hennessy. I'm about to produce, you know what I mean? I'm like, bro, you gotta give me something, bro. You gotta be talented, something. You feel me? Help me, please.
Help me.
You know what I mean? Here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. One finger, one pinky, one thumb, all together. One love. Man. Bryan.
My brother.
Thank you, Doc.
Appreciate you, family.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.